The Grand Morgana Marquis residence basked in the sunlight of the capital city. Sunlight streamed through the ornate windows of a grand, opulent building, hinting at the wealth within. A closer view revealed a large, arched window, its sheer curtains gently swaying in an unseen breeze, bathed in the warm glow of the sun. The soft rustle of the curtains filled the otherwise silent, luxurious room, creating an atmosphere of quiet anticipation. A pink-haired woman in a pastel gown, holding a piece of paper, gave it a thoughtful once-over, a small smile playing on her lips as she decided it was quite acceptable. In a sunlit, opulent room, a lady with vibrant pink hair, dressed in a flowing gown, casually informed the silver-haired gentleman seated across from her that their wedding would be a small affair. She added, with a touch of finality, that they would reside in the north afterwards. With an air of authority, the silver-haired man in ornate attire forewarned that there would be no place for luxury. He sternly instructed that she must conduct herself as a proper lady of the house. The silver-haired nobleman, adorned in a finely crafted outfit with a striking purple jewel, reacted with a quiet, "Stun oh my." His expression a mixture of surprise and mild disapproval. A delicate, pink-haired girl savored the sweet taste of the macarons, her eyes sparkling with pure delight. The pink-haired lady in the elegant gown savored a delicate treat, a soft smile gracing her lips as she decided to indulge in a few more. The silver-haired nobleman, adorned in a finely embroidered jacket and a jeweled brooch, let out a soft, knowing chuckle, a sly glint in his crimson eyes. The pink-haired queen of high society, radiant in a golden gown, held a jeweled scepter, her ethereal beauty undeniable. Someone, captivated by her translucent skin and shimmering hair, mused about the crown prince's understandable attraction. At a grand imperial ball, a few days prior, a now bald man gleefully presented his dramatically altered appearance to the pink-haired lady, his bare head shining under the ballroom's lights. Having taken her advice a little too literally, the pink-haired lady, seemingly speechless, turned away, a subtle sigh escaping her lips while other attendees reacted with a mixture of shock and amusement. In a grand, ornately decorated room, the pink-haired lady, adorned with delicate white, lace and floral accents, mused thoughtfully, a hand covering her mouth. Doubting the veracity of the rumors swirling around her, he smirked, a glint of intrigue in his crimson eyes. Admitting her beauty held a certain undeniable power. A delicate hand tilted a steaming cup of tea, the fragrant liquid almost spilling onto the waiting saucer below. With a subtle smile playing on her lips, the rosy-haired lady, elegantly dressed, lifted her teacup, accepting a proposal with a calm "Fine, let's get married." The silver-haired nobleman, adorned in ornate attire, steepled his fingers, a smug look playing on his lips as he acknowledged a wise decision, seemingly forced by a binding contract. The pink-haired woman savored a steaming cup of tea, a slight smile playing on her lips as the warm aroma filled the sunlit room. With a mischievous glint in his eye and a sly smirk playing on his lips, the silver-haired man leaned forward, challenging the unseen pink-haired woman across the elegantly set table with a provocative question about marriage. The pink-haired woman, seen from behind, sat stiffly, her elaborate hairstyle suggesting a formal occasion, perhaps unaware of the man's playful yet pointed remark. Leaning forward with a sly grin, the silver-haired nobleman, adorned in ornate finery, interrupted the proceedings with a confused "Excuse me," clearly questioning the meaning of something just said. With a sly smirk and a pointed finger, the pink-haired girl dismissed someone, a glint of mischief in her sparkling eyes as she uttered, "Not you?" With a mischievous glint in her eye and a playful point of her finger, the pink-haired beauty declared her intention to marry the other's father, under a starlit sky. Two hands clinked wine glasses, the red liquid shimmering. 300 years in the past, within an ornate gazebo, two men shared a toast, their laughter echoing in the twilight. A marriage contract, etched in elegant script, was forged between two families, binding their future descendants together. The contract, light-hearted in its inception, held a clause allowing for a generous time frame, anticipating potential awkwardness due to age gaps or same-sex pairings. However, the seemingly frivolous agreement held a hidden gravity. The material on which it was written was far from ordinary. A weathered document, seemingly untouched by flames, lay atop a churning sea of lava, promising resilience even amidst fiery destruction. Something, perhaps a body, was discarded in the deep sea, illuminated by faint, ethereal lights as fish circled above. A mysterious document, seemingly impervious to displacement, stubbornly reappeared on a tea table, shimmering with an ethereal glow. Frustration bubbled up, the absurdity of the situation prompting an exasperated exclamation. In a grand, ornate room, a man with striking white hair urgently pointed out a critical clause in a contract to a woman with vibrant red hair, warning her of the dire consequences should its terms be broken. The pink-haired lady, Mebia, sipped her tea, a pensive expression on her face as she glanced at a document before her. Originally, the shy Mibia would have crumbled under Gilbert's forceful proposition and accepted. Ms. Kim, a figure shrouded in a muted pink suit, stood apart, her presence hinting at a life lived on a different plane of existence. A mystical, ornate book, titled Esmeralda's Crescent Moon, lay open, radiating a soft glow, as if holding secrets already revealed to someone privy to its destined conclusion. A puppeteer's wooden hand, strings taut, hovered over a miniature castle, promising a tale of Gilbert, the adopted first son, two marionette brothers, one with a stern face and a tiny sword, the other cheerful and bowed-eyed, dangle in a grand room, their strings hinting at a controlling presence. Ryzen, a kind-hearted soul with the makings of a powerful magician, was bathed in the glow of swirling arcane symbols. A miniature version of him, like a puppet brought to life, dangled in the magical light, a cheerful innocence on his stitched face, while another, smaller version, scowled from the shadows, a tiny dagger clutched in his hand. Thus, he was destined to become the central figure in this unfolding tale. Gilbert, the older brother, seethed with resentment, his face a mask of simmering inferiority. A sharp, gleaming blade sliced through the air, severing a thin, taut wire amidst a backdrop of swirling darkness. With a chilling resolve, Gilbert embraced his destiny as the story's antagonist. 1 year later, a small doll-like figure with rosy hair and a patched dress stood innocently before a grand, sunlit castle, seemingly unaware of the momentous change about to unfold. Gilbert had taken a noble woman as his bride. The narrative confirmed the unfortunate fate of a woman bound to a villain, her wide-eyed, almost vacant expression hinting at the weight of her predicament. The pink-haired bride, Mibia, clutched her bouquet, her gaze seemingly fixed on some unknown horror. Her family's once grand estate, now shrouded in shadows and metaphorical cobwebs, teetered on the brink of ruin thanks to a string of disastrous investments. Trapped by circumstance, she found herself unable to defy Gilbert's menacing demands. As he held the fate of her family's legacy, their contract in his grasp. After a journey north and enduring tortuous days, Mibia bitterly reflected that perhaps marriage had been a mistake. Lost in the snow, a small figure lay still, bundled in a pink scarf. A poignant thought echoing through the wintry silence. If given another chance, she wouldn't make the same mistake again. A dramatic shift was declared. The narrative would now veer from its expected course, all because Ms. Kim had taken hold of Mibia. Mibia breathed new life into her family's dwindling fortunes, amassing such wealth that a whole room overflowed with glittering gold and silver treasures. A dazzling hoard of gold coins, glittering jewels, and ornate necklaces spilled from an overflowing treasure chest. A gleaming sword laid casually atop, the riches all framed by a cascade of vibrant blooms. Someone called out to Mibia, a pink-haired lady in a flowing blue gown, as she gracefully sipped tea in a grand, light-filled room. The silver-haired nobleman, his elegant attire contrasting with his furious expression, demanded to know why he was being treated this way. His voice, though laced with hurt, resonated with a desperate plea for understanding, questioning what wrong he could have possibly committed to deserve such treatment from his lady. Across a table laden with the delicate trappings of afternoon tea, the pink-haired woman gasped, a hand flying to her mouth, questioning the veracity of the message she held. A pink-haired woman, adorned with delicate jewelry, confessed her intense curiosity about someone's father. With a mischievous glint in her eyes and a finger tapping her chin, she declared her absolute need to meet the person who raised Gilbert so wonderfully. A delicate hand traced the elegant script of a letter, the words seemingly holding a secret of paramount importance. And above all, the unseen speaker emphasized, the unspoken promise hanging heavy in the air. A cunning glint sparked in the pink-haired woman's eyes as she held up a document, musing aloud about Gilbert's adoptive father's unmarried status. With a triumphant smile, she declared him a perfect candidate for a certain contract, clearly pleased with her discovery. A delicate hand, adorned with a hint of pink nail polish, pointed towards a specific clause within an aged document. The words "look at this clause" echoing the gesture's urgency. The document, bearing intricate script into crimson wax seals, revealed an astonishing appendix: no restrictions on the age, status, or any other characteristic of the marriage partner. His single crimson eye pulsed with a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. Overwhelmed, he realized with a curse that something unimaginable, something he dismissed as impossible, was undeniably real. The silver-haired nobleman, seated elegantly, seethed with barely contained exasperation at a woman unseen, questioning her audacity. He mused with a hint of irony on the stark contrast between his youthful appearance and the public's likely perception of him. As an elderly duke, a worried servant inquired what his lady desired. Lost in a pleasant daydream, the pink-haired lady seemed to consider jewels and dresses. A soft smile playing on her lips, accusations of insatiable greed, fueled by dissatisfaction with even the grand title of Duchess, hung heavy in the air, visibly enraging the unseen accuser. The accused, their pink-haired head lowered, reacted with a smoldering, offended gaze, their eye flashing with a dangerous light. The silver-haired nobleman, his face flushed with indignation, clutched his ornate brooch, a question of deep insecurity. Bursting forth, was his adopted status the reason for their disdain? A hand, adorned with a delicate, lace-cuff sleeve, rang a small silver bell. The sound seemingly startling the lavender-haired boy seated nearby, a cheerful maid peeking from behind a grand door announced that Syrah was needed to escort Lord Gilbert. A desperate voice, possibly belonging to the startled boy, protested that the conversation wasn't over yet. With a cheerful wave and a sweet smile, the pink-haired lady asked the elegantly dressed man to convey her regards to the Duke. Amidst a flurry of blossoms, the pink-haired woman declared her intentions with a joyful lilt, her words directed to your son. The silver-haired nobleman, adorned in finery, gasped in stunned recognition, eyes widening with a mix of shock and disbelief as he uttered a single, potent word. Snow gently fell around the imposing North Colchis Grand Duke's residence, its towering spires reaching towards the darkening sky. A shimmering, ethereal light emanated from behind a curtain, hinting at a mysterious presence. A gentle voice whispered, urging someone to wake up, as the focus rested on the ornate foot of a grand, possibly royal seat. A majestic, cream-colored lion slumbered peacefully, a vibrant teal serpent coiled around its body, while a small, fluffy, gray creature nestled nearby, seemingly undisturbed by the glistening rain falling around them. A shimmering turquoise snake, with eyes like polished gems, peered inquisitively at a dark, ornate book, wondering aloud how much longer its owner planned to slumber. Colchis, Lord of the North, lay languidly in his ornate coffin-like bed, a sigh escaping his lips as if burdened by the weight of his title and a severe case of laziness. His lips pressed into a thin line, a flicker of resolve in his eyes, hidden beneath the shadow of his elaborate headpiece. With a dreamy sigh and a mischievous twinkle in her eye, the pink-haired girl mused that a demon lord might be preferable to someone named Gilbert, whom she clearly held in low regard. Under the shimmering night sky, a figure announced their presence at a grand, domed building, claiming to be an emissary of Lord Gilbert. 10 days prior, a formally dressed man, likely a butler, inquired politely about Lady Mavia's presence with a courteous greeting and a hand placed respectfully over his heart. 7 days prior, a formally dressed man, likely a butler, greeted Lady Mavia with a nervous, yet hopeful air, subtly fidgeting as he inquired about her availability. 3 days prior, a sharply dressed man with slick-back gray hair clasped his hands together, tears welling in his eyes as he desperately pleaded for a meeting with Lord Gilbert. He seemed to be bracing himself for something. A worried thought bubbled above him, suggesting it wasn't going to go well. His features twisted into a grimace, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple, as he vehemently denied whatever that it was, convinced it would absolutely never happen. The delicate pink-haired lady savored a small, decadent cake, a soft expression of contentment on her face as she sat by the window, seemingly lost in thought. A maid rushed into an opulent room, calling out urgently for Lady Mavia, her voice laced with both concern and excitement. The pink-haired lady, seemingly startled mid-bite of a delicate dessert, looked up with wide, curious eyes. A worried maid frantically questioned the pink-haired lady enjoying a dessert, urging her to calm down. The maid revealed the treat was a gift from Lord Gilbert, her tone implying trouble. The lady, seemingly unfazed, retorted that one should always check the meaning of a gift first. The maid, aghast, pointed a trembling finger at the basket of white chrysanthemums, her voice laced with disbelief as she exclaimed about the sender's utter lack of sensitivity in choosing funeral flowers. Her outrage intensified as she lifted the basket, the absurdity of the gesture highlighted by the cheerful brown bow tied to its handle. She fumed inwardly, convinced that such blatant thoughtlessness had to be intentional. With a flicker of annoyance in her eyes, the pink-haired lady in the frilly lavender dress turned her head sharply, a hanging basket of white flowers looming above her, with a barely perceptible curve of her lips. The pink-haired woman excused a man's words, convinced he hadn't intended any harm. A maid, holding a basket of pristine white flowers, inwardly grumbled about the sender's lack of floral imagination. The pink-haired lady, indulging in a delicate dessert, seemed unperturbed by the maid's thoughts, savoring the sweet treat. Regardless of the giver's simple taste, the recipient declared her appreciation. The maid fumed, her frustration evident as she complained about the inconsiderate ducal house and their lack of manners, while the pink-haired girl beside her, seemingly unbothered, enjoyed a sweet treat. A silent observer noted the Kalakas family's notorious reputation for neglect, their actions speaking volumes. Pushing away a half-eaten dessert, a hand gracefully reached across the table, its owner suggesting an impromptu adventure to break the monotony. A sly smile played on the pink-haired woman's lips as she declared her ambitious goal for the day, her eyes gleaming with determination as golden coins shimmered around her, hinting at the financial nature of her pursuit. Surrounded by a shower of glittering coins, the pink-haired girl clutched a peculiar red device, a mischievous glint in her eyes, declaring their shopping spree wouldn't end until every last penny was spent. A maid, sporting stylish shades and a gold gun, saluted with a playful smirk, surrounded by sparkling stars and floating coins, enthusiastically responding to her master's command. Then, with a mischievous afterthought, she ordered an unfortunate bouquet to be incinerated. Under a clear blue sky, a majestic building stood tall, its rival heralded by the momentous announcement of Lady Mavia's presence. Amidst a dazzling array of exquisite gowns and sparkling jewels, a voice declared the establishment fully booked for the day. The shop door slammed shut with a resounding clang, leaving two young women outside, their faces etched with confusion. Lady Mavia, the eldest daughter of House Morgana, stood resplendent in a magnificent gown, her pink hair cascading around her as her attendants gazed upon her with admiration and awe. With a reassuring smile, the maid offered her assistance to the ladies gathered in the opulent room, promising to be there whenever needed. With a warm smile, one woman gratefully clasped Mavia's hands, thanking her for the invitation amidst a backdrop of delicate lilies. Charles Morgos, the eldest daughter of the third Marquis, fretted over her wardrobe choices for Monica's upcoming birthday celebration, a slight sheen of anxiety glistening in her eyes. With a sly, almost predatory smile, the pink-haired woman expressed her gratitude for her companion's agreement to spend the day with her, her words laced with an intriguing undertone. The pink-haired lady, clearly relieved, expressed her gratitude to the other woman for assisting her with a seemingly crucial choice. A sigh escaped the helper's lips as she shuddered, recalling a disastrous party from the previous year. The redhead, stunned, could only think of how tacky the lavender gown was, questioning if the other woman had actually paid for such a tasteless garment. The woman in lavender, striking a pose and adjusting her hair with a smug smile, clearly relished the redhead's reaction. Silently fuming, the redhead seethed, feeling utterly humiliated by the other woman's blatant display of superiority. A worried Charles was reassured by the pink-haired woman's determined promise to make them look impeccable, silencing any potential criticism from Monica. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the pink-haired girl clung to her savior, Eve, proclaiming her the one who rescued her. A closed sign, hanging from an ornate gold chain, swung gently, a soft apology offered for a fully booked establishment. The red-haired woman, startled, exclaimed that she'd been told she could arrive at any time. With a nervous, strained smile, the other woman explained that another guest had already arrived. Inside a grand, opulent hall, a figure, possibly thinking about a certain Charles in a dress, was abruptly turned away, erupting in a furious outburst, demanding to know who dared to deny them entry. A familiar voice startled the two women, their expressions shifting from calm to disbelief as they exchanged glances. A grand, ornate door began to close. Suddenly, a voice called out, desperate to stop the closing door. The speaker revealed a startling truth. Someone was still inside the room. A worried voice whispered a suspicion that the unseen presence belonged to a friend. But a fiery-haired woman, adorned with a heart-shaped earring, reassured with a calm "it's fine." The pink-haired lady, seemingly absorbed in her book, remained oblivious to the looming presence behind the ornate chair. A fiery-haired woman, dressed in a crimson gown and lace gloves, held a delicate fan to her chin, a knowing smile playing on her lips as someone addressed her, seemingly confirming her identity as Mebia. A fiery-haired woman, elegantly dressed and holding a decorated fan, met someone's gaze with a look that hinted at both amusement and shrewd calculation. The crimson-haired woman then clutched dramatically, questioned the room, a hint of suspicion lacing her voice. Reclining gracefully on a plush settee, the pink-haired lady, book in hand, responded with a cheerful and seemingly carefree demeanor. A warm greeting, tinged with an almost hesitant undertone, followed, addressed to the elegantly dressed woman beside her. The redhead's gaze sharpened, a flicker of confusion in her steely eyes, as the unexpected presence of Charles sparked a silent question. The question echoed, growing louder in her mind, demanding an explanation for this bewildering turn of events. The flamboyant redhead, fanning herself dramatically, lectured about fashion sense being more important than expensive clothes. The pink-haired woman, seemingly embarrassed, held the book as if seeking refuge from the lecture, while the person beside her with short brown hair and an elaborate cravat looked on with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. Acknowledging the redhead's point, the pink-haired lady explained that she had enlisted Eve's help for precisely that reason. The fiery-haired woman in the crimson gown, holding a delicate fan before her, declared her intentions for the day. With a serious air, a resounding no filled the opulent room, startling the three women. The woman in pink, clutching a small pastry, looked aghast while the redhead in burgundy, holding a book, appeared defiant. Their companion, dressed in blue, recoiled comically, seemingly caught in the crossfire. As another declared this must be fate and offered to intervene, the redhead, clutching a book, seemed to brush off a suggestion with a dismissive air. The other woman, adorned with a large bow at her neck, immediately bristled, questioning her companion's faith in Monaco Lane's taste. Someone declared Mebia so beautiful, even a flour sack would look stunning on her. Startled, the pink-haired girl, partly hidden behind a large book, wondered aloud if that was a compliment. The red-haired woman holding the book quickly clarified it wasn't about Mebia's fashion sense. Rosy-haired girl, adorned with a delicate flower, offered a gentle, almost shy smile, belying the villainous reputation she held in the story. The narration revealed the surprising truth. Despite being portrayed as a cruel antagonist named Monica, she was, in fact, just a sweet, clumsy, and timid young woman. The redhead, adorned in a striking black dress, pondered the possibility of her differences from the novel's Mebia, a realization dawning in her eyes as she held an antique book. A sudden understanding crossed her face as she exclaimed, "This is it," to the other woman with her, who listened. With a surprised look, a glamorous, frilly gown design, complete with a wide-brimmed hat, was displayed on a vintage-looking page adorned with delicate script. The fiery-haired woman, with an excited glint in her eyes, declared that such a flamboyant, feminine style would be the perfect counterpoint to someone named Charles. More understated demeanor. The woman, holding an ornate box, winced, finding the outfit inside a tad too extravagant for her taste. A fiery redhead dressed in elegant attire and black gloves presented a book of dress designs, urging a pink-haired woman to try them on before making a decision. The pink-haired woman, seemingly hesitant, looked at the designs with a concerned expression, already forming an opinion about a particular outfit. A gloved hand gently caressed the vibrant red tresses. Someone suggested Monica try it on, their voice laced with intrigue. Monica, a fiery redhead, turned her head, a look of quiet contemplation on her face. The pink-haired woman gently held a lock of the redhead's hair, a knowing smile playing on her lips as she complimented her on how perfectly something would match her vibrant color. Though she vehemently declared her dislike for something, a reluctant concession followed, hinted by the phrase, "but if you insist that much," and a subtle shift in her expression. A pink-haired girl in a frilly gown reached out to a small, red, fanged creature, seemingly attempting to tame it. Three other girls, their faces alight with curiosity and amusement, pondered the princess's actions. A woman with brown hair presented a fashion design from a book to the redhead, suggesting the rich colors would be perfect for her. The redhead, seemingly surprised, wondered aloud if it would truly suit her, while a pink-haired woman beside them looked on, appearing to offer an opinion. Someone encouraged another to try something. The redhead, adorned with heart-shaped earrings and a dark choker, considered the suggestion, a subtle tension in the air. A hushed whisper followed, revealing the redhead's name to be Mebia, and confirming dark suspicions about the circulating rumors. News of a marriage proposal from Lord Gilbert spread, met with shocked disbelief from the group of women. Two elegantly dressed ladies sat on a plush sofa, one in pale blue, the other in olive green, the air thick with stunned silence. Nearby, three more women reacted with a mixture of awe and outrage, one of them, with vibrant red hair, turning sharply to address the pink-haired woman with a fierce question about the rumored premarital charity. A hushed whisper filled the air, questioning if the man in question was Gilbert from the esteemed house of Glaucus, causing the brunette in a pale blue dress to gasp and cover her mouth in surprise. Another woman beside her, dressed in olive green, echoed the astonishment with a delighted squeal, turning to the first with a pointed question about the veracity of Monica's words. With a mischievous glint in her eye and a playful smile, the pink-haired lady declared she had already rejected the proposal. She chuckled softly, a knowing look spreading across her face, as if confirming a suspicion she'd held all along. The redhead, with a sly smile and a dismissive flick of her lace-gloved wrist, scoffed at Gilbert's adopted status despite acknowledging his attractive features. She found it amusing how he carried himself with the air of true nobility, a pretense she clearly found ironic. The woman with auburn hair, presumably Monica, was chastised for her irreverent words about a lord. The fiery-haired woman, dressed in a rich burgundy gown, challenged the other, her gloved hand reaching out as if to emphasize her point that Mebia deserved someone better. The woman in blue, her expression a mix of apprehension and defiance. Listened as the other warned her that marrying him meant a life exiled in the desolate north. With her back to the others, the pink-haired woman offered a soft reassurance. Don't worry. With a clenched fist, the pink-haired woman in a flowing gown rose abruptly from the ornate settee. The rosy-haired lady, dressed in a flowing gown, envisioned a blissful future, her gaze soft with dreams of a happy life. She longed for a devoted husband, whose eyes would see only her, in the comforting embrace of their cozy northern home. Excusing herself due to a sudden indisposition, the pink-haired lady in a grand gown gracefully departed, leaving the other women seated on the ornate sofas. A blush crept across the pink-haired girl's face, her eye narrowing with a flicker of troubled resignation. She wondered, with a hint of despair, if destiny was inevitable, and if everything would unfold the same way regardless of her choices. In the original novel, under the soft glow of a staged light, two doll-like figures, one in pale yellow, the other in rich burgundy, sat facing each other at a small table, teacups between them. A palpable tension in the air. Monica, fanning herself with a delicate hand, relentlessly criticized Gilbert day after day. The pink-haired character seemed to confess that even the slightest accidental nod had consequences. She adopted another's words as her own, a chilling premonition of things to come. A splash of crimson on the wooden floor hinted at Gilbert's violence now directed at her. But even that sacrifice, it seemed, would prove insufficient, leaving a haunting sense of dread. The redhead, with a knowing smile, caressed the silver-haired man's cheek as they lay together in Gilbert's bed. A shadowed figure looming large in the foreground, a character, seemingly plotting, vowed to secure a brighter future for themselves and someone named Monica. The air vibrated with a silent wish, a desperate hope that Monica would never cross paths with the certain trash. A pink-haired woman in an elaborate gown appeared, her expression a mix of apprehension and determination as she stood bathed in warm light. Observing her with a knowing look, he remarked on her improved demeanor. The silver-haired nobleman, a subtle smirk playing on his lips, addressed the pink-haired lady as Lady Mebia. The rosy-haired woman appeared stunned, her wide eyes hinting at a sudden, unsettling realization. In a sunlit, opulent hall, a silver-haired man stood stiffly, his back to the viewer. Facing a woman with vibrant, flowing red hair and a lavish gown, a silver-haired man, adorned in a dark, ornate uniform, leaned in, a glint of challenge in his crimson eyes, urging the unseen lady to break the silence. The pink-haired woman, a rose tucked behind her ear, cast a look of quiet contemplation, her expression veiled by a curtain of soft tresses, surrounded by exquisite dresses and shoes. The pink-haired lady dramatically clutched a gold gun, feigning illness despite her supposed recovery. She lamented that her condition would only worsen without some retail therapy, convinced that shopping was the best medicine. An exasperated voice, presumably Mebia's, cut through her theatrics, reminding her of the existence of actual medicine. A scoffing sound followed by boisterous laughter echoed through the opulent hall, drawing the attention of the pink-haired lady. She, clearly taken aback, demanded to know if he had finally gone mad, though admitting he'd never been entirely sane to begin with. He stared down at the elegant figure in the lavish gown, a sudden realization dawning upon him. He had been utterly blind to something significant. The silver-haired man, a mischievous glint in his eyes, leaned close, teasingly accusing the pink-haired individual of feigning fluster just to see his reaction. He playfully ruffled his own hair, a smug grin spreading across his face as he challenged their childish behavior. One person declared their absolute lack of intention to marry the other. The other, however, brushed off the rejection, certain it wasn't genuine. Exasperated, the first person vehemently insisted they were completely serious. A startled gasp escaped someone as they addressed Lady Mebia, their hand gripping something tightly. He gripped her arm, his voice low and dangerous, cutting through her feigned distress as he declared an end to her charade. The silver-haired nobleman, adorned in a rich blue uniform, declared his patience, worn thin, a dangerous glint flashing in his crimson eyes. The pink-haired woman, adorned with a white flower, realized with dawning horror that she had let her guard down, and someone had revealed their true nature far sooner than she anticipated. A booming voice cut through the opulent hall, silencing the unseen commotion with a single, powerful word: enough. Amidst a grand, brightly lit ballroom, a woman in a blue dress vehemently refused a proffered item, her voice ringing out as to other women in elaborate gowns watched with startled expressions. With a stern expression, the newcomer declared their arrival was to confront the lady who had broken a promise. Their gaze fixed on a woman with vibrant pink hair, who looked back with a mixture of surprise and defiance, with a sly smile and a glint in his red eyes. The silver-haired nobleman, adorned in rich fabrics and a jeweled brooch, politely gestured for someone to move out of his way, with a determined glint in her eye. The brown-haired woman gripped the hilt of her sword, declaring she would summon the guards. Her piercing teal eyes narrowed, radiating a chilling intensity that hinted at a storm brewing within. The silver-haired man paused, his back to the women in the room, a sense of recognition dawning on him. Darkness closed in, swallowing the scene, as a chilling premonition settled upon him. He'd seen this before. A document fluttered down, landing before the silver-haired man in the ornate uniform, a silent command echoing in the dimly lit room. "Take care of it," with a chilling finality. He warned the silver-haired man never to seek him out for such trivial matters again. A piercing blue eye, filled with chilling disdain, stared down as if at something insignificant. A dark, textured surface hinted at a hidden movement or a concealed presence. The chilling gaze intensified, radiating a palpable sense of disgust and superiority. The silver-haired man's back was to the woman, his posture radiating an almost palpable anger as he seemed to barely contain his fury. With a fierce grip on her companion's hand, the brown-haired woman challenged his unspoken accusation, her voice sharp with indignation at his perceived judgment. Ambition burned in Gilbert's heart as he envisioned his future as the Duke of Glaucus, ruler of the entire North, while a crowd of onlookers murmured in the background. With a fiery glint in her eyes and a rose adorning her pink hair, she issued a sharp warning: "Leave now or be dragged away." The silver-haired man's face, framed by elegant attire, hardened with a mixture of surprise and annoyance as he caught someone's gaze across the bustling ballroom, a silent accusation of stalking hanging heavy in the air. He cursed under his breath, the rising frustration evident in the clench of his jaw. A carriage pulled up sharply, its driver tensely perched upon the seat as a small crowd gathered nearby, their gazes fixed on a distinguished gentleman and a woman in a delicate pink gown. A maid excitedly announced the arrival of the carriage, urging her lady to board. The lady with vibrant pink hair, startled by the sudden call, cried out "Sira." In apparent distress or surprise, urgency filled the air as the brown-haired woman, her bow askew, grasped the pink-haired beauty's arm, pulling her along and insisting, "That me be a hurry." With a gentle smile and a polite nod, the pink-haired lady excused herself from the dark-clad figure, her words carrying a hint of finality. The silver-haired man's back was turned, his attention seemingly captured by a portrait of a pink-haired woman. As the name Mebia hung in the air, spoken with an unknown intention, dressed in finery, the silver-haired gentleman offered to escort a lady, whose pink hair cascaded down her back, to the imperial ball, his expression a mix of formality and hidden intent. The pink-haired woman, a sly smile playing on her lips, questioned if her intentions had been misunderstood. With a dismissive flick of a gloved hand, the character declared their refusal to attend the ball, then, with a sudden shift in tone, proposed an alternative plan. With a mischievous glint in her eye and a playful smirk, the pink-haired woman in the elegant gown hinted at their next encounter. Her words, though unspoken, clearly promised a reunion at the upcoming engagement ceremony. Following Mebia's departure northwards, a new custom of gracefully declining marriage proposals swept through the land, marked by a delicate closing of doors. A chilling piece of wisdom prefaced a scene of fiery resolve to never see someone again. Their flowers must burn. With a gleeful hum and a wickedly satisfied grin, the maid stoked the flames consuming the unfortunate bouquet. Under a star-dusted sky, a majestic, ornate building glowed, bathed in moonlight, hinting at secrets held within. Exhausted, the pink-haired lady collapsed onto the ornate settee, sighing about her difficult day. A maid holding a tray with a glass cautiously advised her to be careful in the coming days, her tone laced with unspoken concern. A maid, startled, offered a glass of water on a tray, gently urging someone to drink. A hand, elegantly holding a stemmed glass, implied a silent toast, gratitude towards someone named Sira hanging in the air. A sudden shift in thought, a flicker of concern, focused on a certain duke, whose presence seemed to unsettle the glass holder. Bewildered, she wondered how he'd found her, his unexpected arrival throwing her off guard. A servant, seemingly startled, carefully presented a decorative plate, its ornate design catching the light. A worried thought crossed her mind, acknowledging the unsettling truth of a recent revelation. The maid, her hands clasped nervously, wondered if she'd been followed, a chilling suspicion taking root. The pink-haired woman, her expression pensive, seemed to consider a proposition. Dismissing the idea, she lamented her absence, feeling she could have offered support if she'd been present. The maid, with a serious expression and a pointed finger, firmly instructed the pink-haired lady that from now on, she must always be accompanied by guards when venturing outside. The maid, wringing her hands, looked worriedly at the pink-haired lady who had just declared something easier said than done, prompting a curious "Why's that?" from the maid. A voice warned Gilbert that despite appearances, the silver-haired man standing amidst fallen bodies gripping a glowing sword, was the Empire's most formidable swordsman. The pink-haired lady declared that a small security detail wasn't sufficient, a raised finger emphasizing her point, while her maid's face contorted with alarm. Panic seized the maid, her whisper a desperate plea for a solution. A veiled threat hung in the air, hinting at a powerful, secret weapon to be used only in dire circumstances. Shocked, the other person questioned the drastic measure. Their words laced with disbelief and alarm. A servant offered a plate to the pink-haired lady, reassuring her it would only happen once. The pink-haired woman, a smug smile playing on her lips, mused that her future husband wouldn't dare meet her gaze after their wedding. A shocked voice abruptly demanded to know who she was marrying. Powerful, dark wings unfurled against a vibrant blue sky. A rush of wind hinted at impending action. A blinding flash of light erupted in the ornate room, startling the pink-haired woman lounging on a chaise lounge and drawing a surprised gasp. From the maid nearby, a sudden, powerful force erupted, shaking the very foundations of the elegant, possibly glass-walled structure, sending a shockwave of shattered light and debris outwards. A startled maid, eyes wide with alarm, whispered about a monstrous stranger while serving a pink-haired lady a drink. The pink-haired lady, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern, heard a panicked cry for a knight. A single, luminous eye reflecting a dark bird in its depths, held a desperate plea. No, don't summon them. A rosy-haired maiden adorned in a delicate blue gown held a raven gently on her fingertip, a serene smile gracing her lips amidst a dreamlike floral backdrop. A large, dark crow with striking blue eyes landed gracefully, its presence immediately questioned. Awakening in a sun-drenched room, the pink-haired girl greeted a small raven perched on her finger with a gentle hello, to which the bird responded with a curious caw. A hushed thought, a monster, drifted through the air, tinged with fear and uncertainty. The pink-haired figure, a vision of ethereal beauty, offered a chilling correction, a sinister glint in their eyes. No, to be precise. A pink-haired woman gasped, her hand flying to her mouth as a shadowy, bird-like creature materialized in swirling, mystical light, identified as the Duke's familiar. The dark bird tilted its head, as if confirming its identity, as a voice echoed, seeking confirmation. In a dimly lit room, a figure clad in white gloves held a sheaf of papers, the contents seemingly absorbing their attention. With a tone of stark finality, the figure declared this was no mere request. A dark-haired man in ornate attire sat contemplatively, a letter in hand, resolving to proceed with the marriage despite unknown circumstances. His gaze shifted to a portrait of a pink-haired woman, a subtle smile playing on her lips, hinting at a secret pact or a hidden agenda. A small, dark raven perched delicately on a gloved hand, its bright eye gleaming in the dimly lit, opulent room as someone whispered its name from his ornate throne. The dark-haired man, adorned in a richly detailed blue uniform, gestured dismissively, ordering someone to check on Gilbert. His lips pressed together in a thoughtful, almost hesitant line. A pregnant pause hung in the air, filled only with unspoken anticipation. And then, with a dramatic flourish, the name Mebia Estin Morgana was revealed, echoing with importance. The pink-haired woman, perched gracefully on an ornate chaise lounge, cradled a small dark bird in her hands, her expression thoughtful. A command echoed through the lavish room, unseen but ominous. The woman was to be watched, her every move scrutinized. Among the Duke's familiars, a pink-haired woman gently held a small, dark creature, a charmed smile gracing her lips as she marveled at its unexpected cuteness. Under the watchful gaze of a star-dusted sky, the grand villa of Grand Duke Kalakis stood majestically in the capital city. A surge of power erupted, streaks of purplish energy flashing through the air, accompanied by droplets of blood and a furious curse directed at someone named Mebia. Amidst a shattered room, strewn with debris and stained with crimson, a lone figure huddled on the cold floor, his head clutched in his hands as a furious voice echoed, demanding to know how he dared look at them with such defiance. The question reverberated through the tense air, charged with anger and unspoken threat. As he seemed to shrink further into himself, gripping his head, the silver-haired man's eyes blazed with a manic intensity as he posed a cryptic, almost threatening question. The silver-haired man, his hands stained crimson, declared his future position as head of the Kalakis family with an air of indignant disbelief. That someone dared to reject him, a small, dark bird-like creature, illuminated by an ethereal glow, chirped softly against a backdrop of swirling, dark energy, only to be dismissed with a cold, single word, pathetic. A piercing blue gaze, framed by dark hair, hardened with a chilling finality as if a grim decision had just been made. A complex, glowing, mystical symbol pulsed with an otherworldly energy, confirming his ominous declaration. He had witnessed all he needed to see. Overcome with grief or despair, the silver-haired young master clutched his head, his body hunched, In the dimly lit, opulent room, a hushed voice announced the arrival of a much-anticipated delivery, only to be followed by a harsh, desperate demand from the silver-haired man, his eyes blazing with manic intensity as he reached out a bloodied hand. A hand, trembling slightly, reached out and firmly grasped a seemingly important object, the air round it crackling with an unseen energy. A chilling premonition flickered in his crimson eye as he muttered a dark possibility. A dark bird with glowing blue eyes watched from a branch. Against a starry sky, a young man with gray hair, a small square bandage on his forehead, and a dark earring, held a cracked round object, a predatory grin spreading across his face. Irritation flashed through him, the situation clearly taking an unwelcome turn. The next day dawned bright and clear, a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. A small, dark bird, presumably a raven, dozed peacefully on a soft, silken pillow. Oblivious to the gentle call to awaken, a small dark bird slumbered peacefully, nestled amongst soft, patterned bedding. A maid, a gentle smile playing on her lips, leaned in to rouse the pink-haired girl from her slumber. Her words a soft but firm call to wakefulness. The little black bird burrowed its head into its feathery chest, seemingly embarrassed. Suddenly alert, the bird lifted its head, bright blue eyes wide with surprise. With a soft chirp, it looked around inquisitively. The pink-haired woman, adorned in a sharp, embellished uniform, adjusted her cuff with a confident, almost mischievous smile, a hint of curiosity in her eyes as she wondered aloud where her path was leading her, while a maid in the background watched with mild concern. A small, dark bird tilted its head inquisitively, a question mark floating above it, as if pondering the words very soon. Anticipation hung in the air, a sense that something interesting was about to unfold. The pink-haired figure, hunched over a desk littered with papers, mused on the countless hours spent analyzing him. Her dedication had surpassed even Gilbert's own understanding of himself, imbuing her with a quiet confidence. A sketched portrait of Gilbert pinned amongst the scattered documents seemed to affirm her conviction that she knew him best. A gloved hand, adorned with a jeweled bracelet, reached down towards a small, seemingly vulnerable figure, a promise of impending doom hanging in the air for Gilbert. The looming figure vowed to use the small one for their own ends, a sinister purpose radiating from the darkness. Clutching a small, pale doll, the pink-haired woman declared her intent to consume fate itself, a fiery glint in her crimson eyes. A worried maid questioned the pink-haired lady, dressed in riding attire, about her safety as she prepared to mount a saddled horse. With a reassuring touch to the horse's neck, the lady confidently asserted she had everything under control. With a soft smile and a gentle touch, the pink-haired girl reassured her horse, vowing to keep Elisa safe from harm. The maid, a small bird perched on her shoulder, wrung her hands, clearly worried despite her cautious suggestion that he take at least one guard. Someone's boot pressed down, emphasizing the speaker's point about a certain formidable him. Astride her horse, the pink-haired rider mused that their target would likely hide if they sensed any unexpected presence. Watching her depart, the maid in a ruffled apron grimly resolved to seize this opportunity and put an end to the matter. Perched atop her horse, the pink-haired rider playfully teased a small, dark bird that had landed nearby, seemingly concerned for her well-being, and reassured it with a gentle smile. A finger pointed accusingly at a small, dark bird flitting away, a sharp command echoing in its wake. With a sharp tug of the reins and a call of Elisa, "Let's go," the elegantly dressed figure signaled their impatient departure. With a determined glint in her eye, the pink-haired rider urged her horse into a powerful gallop, leaving a trail of dust in her wake. With a joyous cry, the pink-haired rider galloped past a shadowy figure, leaving them shrouded in mystery and the echo of hoofs. A figure, clad in a dark, intricately decorated uniform, gripped a menacing, glowing sword, the air thick with anticipation. With a determined cry, the pink-haired rider urged her horse forward, a crop whizzing through the air. The silver-haired man, clad in a dark, ornate uniform, gripped a glowing red sword, a sinister smirk playing on his lips. Someone cried out in alarm, recognizing the young master. The pink-haired figure, seen from behind, was questioned with a sharp, suspicious young master. "What do you think you're doing?" Their expression a mixture of challenge and amusement. Startled figure, partially obscured, seemed surprised by the sudden appearance of the silver-haired man. The newcomer, clad in a dark, ornate uniform and gripping a glowing sword, claimed his intrusion was merely a greeting. He offered an apology, urging the other to lower their guard, the tension in the air thick with unspoken words. The rider with vibrant pink hair, perched atop a restless steed, curtly dismissed the silver-haired young man's implied apology, demanding he move. He readily agreed, but with a pregnant pause and an air of anticipation, hinting at an unfinished thought. The pink-haired rider, perched gracefully atop her steed, was complimented on her impeccable form and asked if she'd had prior training. She simply replied, "Just." The pink-haired rider on horseback accused the man standing defiantly before her of obstructing her path for frivolous reasons. A menacing figure, clad in dark attire, grasped a glowing, ornate sword, their words laced with a sardonic amusement. At her apparent eagerness, an unseen speaker offered a cryptic chance, cutting straight to the chase. Atop her steed, the pink-haired woman in riding attire bristled, internally questioning the speaker's casual audacity. With a sly smirk, the silver-haired man in the ornate uniform offered a tempting proposition: accept his marriage proposal and accompany him to the grand ball. Her expression hardened as she declared her father would never allow them to marry. A pointed finger, accompanied by a chilling question, hung in the air. The scene darkened, the unsettling truth revealed in his eyes. Humanity was nothing more than cattle. A chilling thought echoed to him. Humans were mere livestock, no different than the sheep and pigs illustrated. He acquired them as needed, using people as disposable tools, devoid of any real value beyond their utility. A portrait of a pink-haired woman in a wedding gown emanated a chilling serenity, as a declaration echoed that a wife, deemed mere livestock, was currently unnecessary. To her father, menacing wolves circled a small, vulnerable rabbit, a chilling metaphor for a woman's bleak future. The ominous warning echoed, even marriage wouldn't save her from abandonment and neglect. The grim prophecy continued, painting a picture of her defenselessness against the metaphorical wolves, hinting at a dangerous and unforgiving world. A pink-haired woman, adorned in a sharp, formal uniform, touched her chin thoughtfully, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, as if reacting to unexpected news. She mused aloud, clearly perplexed by the revelation of someone's uncharacteristic stinginess. A small boy with white hair lingered near a doorway as a man, presumably his elder, reached for the ornate handle, a sense of anticipation hanging in the air. A bruised and battered child sat huddled on the floor, his silver hair a stark contrast to the dark room, while a sharp, disapproving gaze fell upon him. The words "selfish" and "ruining the family's reputation" hanging heavy in the air. With a confident smirk and a pointed finger, the pink-haired woman in the elegant riding outfit declared the importance of what she was about to say, implying her listener severely lacked a certain charm. A cunning glint flickered in the pink-haired woman's eyes as she mused aloud, a finger thoughtfully tapping her lips, questioning whether someone had truly dealt with a certain individual. With a knowing glance, the rider on horseback informed the young master that she understood the situation and would be departing ahead of him. A final, almost cryptic "enjoy the ball" echoed as she rode away. Doubt lingered in the sun-dappled woods, a hesitant, maybe hanging in the air like the lone bird perched on a branch. A figure on horseback fled, while a menacing presence, sword gripped tight, declared their last chance was gone. With a swirl of her vibrant pink ponytail and a chilling promise to make someone rue the day, she turned her back, leaving an ominous tension in the air. His silver hair seemed to crackle with barely contained fury as he gripped his sword, its hilt glowing ominously, and demanded how dare they disrespect him. With a sinister glint in his eyes and a cruel promise on his lips to ruin his target's night, the silver-haired man lunged, his crimson blade flashing through the air. The pink-haired woman in the riding outfit tumbled from her horse, a startled expression on her face as the world turned upside down. His crimson eyes widened in shock, a silent exclamation hanging in the air, a sudden rush of movement, a blur of motion. As a foot struck with forceful impact, sending dust and debris flying, the silver-haired warrior, his face a mask of bewildered alarm, struggled to deflect a blow from a blazing red sword. A startled "what?" escaping his lips. With a surge of power, the silver-haired man delivered a swift kick, sending the pink-haired figure reeling back as a crimson sword clattered to the ground. Amidst a burst of vibrant green energy. With a deceptively polite tone, the rider on horseback made a move, their sword whizzing through the air and embedding itself deeply into the ground, just inches from their startled opponent. With a fierce glint in her golden eyes and a confident smirk, the pink-haired woman in the military-esque uniform challenged her unseen opponent, radiating an aura of power that dared them to underestimate her. With a fierce glint in her eyes, the pink-haired woman in the ornate uniform stepped forward, her posture radiating power as she challenged the unseen addressee, questioning their perception of her vulnerability. His eyes, blazing with a furious crimson, widened in disbelief. A choked whisper escaped his lips, a single disbelieving question. "How?" A surge of power ignited within, their eye blazing with a fierce, otherworldly glow. 11 years prior, a story began to unfold. A grand clock tower loomed over the cityscape, its hands frozen in time. Darkness enveloped a menacing figure as they uttered a chilling prophecy of death to a small girl. The pink-haired girl, seemingly unfazed, looked upwards with a curious, almost knowing, expression. A shadowy figure, an old man cloaked in darkness, materialized before the pink-haired girl, revealing his true nature as a demon in disguise. He extended an offer, a tempting contract, its terms veiled in an unsettling mystique. A shadowed figure, his fiery gaze piercing the darkness, made a chilling offer: prepare his final resting place. An unparalleled power would be bestowed. The pink-haired girl, eyes wide with a strange mixture of fear and fascination, recoiled slightly as a cloaked figure loomed over her, the air thick with the unspoken presence of an unknown magic. Frozen in terror, a figure confessed their fear, body rigid with dread. Clutching their flowing garment, they made a sudden, instinctive realization. The cloaked figure, shrouded in darkness, declared dramatically that refusal meant death. A small girl with pink hair, her face a mixture of shock and determination, tugged at the figure's cloak, her eyes wide with a silent plea. The cloaked figure, seemingly moved by the girl's desperation, offered a cryptic promise of a prepared grave. A cloaked figure offered a gilded box filled with small, ornate vials, their voice a low murmur, promising strength from within, but with a veiled warning of unseen consequences. A surge of golden light hinted at the potent, perhaps dangerous, nature of the offering, the words trailing off ominously. A glowing vial wrapped in spiraling cords, pulsed with golden energy, offering a temporary loan of immense power. A dark, ominous warning followed, threatening retribution upon anyone who dared disturb a certain grave. A cloaked figure presented a small chest to the pink-haired girl, who recoiled in disgust upon realizing its gruesome contents. The cloaked figure, seemingly unfazed, mused on a more palatable alternative. Reflecting on the interaction, the girl found a surprising hint of sweetness in the gesture despite its macabre nature. A pink-haired noble, hands clasped demurely, met the accusation of witchcraft with a serene, almost amused expression. The silver-haired man, adorned in a dark, ornate uniform, erupted in disbelief, his face contorted with a mixture of anger and shock, demanding to know how someone could make a pact with the demon. The pink-haired woman's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of recognition, or perhaps confusion, crossing her face as she murmured about a striking similarity. The pink-haired woman, perched and amused, threatened to report the silver-haired person's actions to the authorities. The silver-haired individual scoffed, pointing a finger accusingly, claiming that the other had been the aggressor and questioning who would believe such a story. With a sly, almost predatory smile, the pink-haired noble posed a pointed question, challenging the king's judgment about who he would trust more, her or another. Seemingly less favored individual called Gongja, flushed and with a furrowed brow. The silver-haired man in the ornate uniform grappled with a sudden, perplexing dilemma, his mind racing for a solution. A character's mind raced, struck by the familiar strength emanating from Lady Mavia, eerily reminiscent of their fathers. Their eyes widened, a golden glow intensifying as realization dawned. Mavia's power wasn't just similar, it was overwhelmingly greater, eclipsing even the memory of their father's might. A lone bird soared across a vibrant blue sky, dappled with fluffy white clouds, the rustling leaves of the trees below whispering secrets to the wind. A gloved hand touched a pale face, a silent question of, was it a trap? Hanging heavy in the air, the pink-haired woman, adorned in a smart uniform, with a jeweled brooch, wore a serene, almost unsettlingly calm smile as if she held a secret. An unseen observer questioned her relaxed demeanor, a hint of suspicion lacing their voice. A small, gray bird tilted its head with a curious glint in its bright blue eye, a bead of sweat trickling down its cheek as if pondering a perplexing question. A lone rider on horseback was visible within a shimmering, magical portal, observed by a dark-haired man seated in an ornate chair, a flicker of suspicion in his eyes as he wondered if she had sensed his presence. A nervous young man, Kalen, stammered a greeting to Lady Mevia, who sat astride her horse, seemingly surprised by his sudden appearance in the forest. He stiffly introduced himself as a friend of Glibbert, while another man attended to a nearby horse. Observing the interaction, startled by a sudden question from Gilbert, Kalen, astride his horse, could only stammer out a confused "what?" In response, the brown-haired man, aghast, questioned the silver-haired one's abrupt departure after their conversation, demanding to know what he had done. He whispered urgently, a palpable tension filling the air, revealing that the silver-haired man's opponent was the formidable Lady Mevia. A jovial man in green, chuckling softly, patted the head of a disgruntled silver-haired man in black. The man in black, clearly irritated, demanded to know what his companion was doing. The green-clad man quickly begged forgiveness for his friend, immediately switching tactics to praise the other's impressive horsemanship. A startled young man in a military-style jacket recoiled, as a woman with vibrant pink hair effortlessly controlled a powerful steed, her playful command echoing in the air. Under a pastel sky, A gentle suggestion to Alyssa hung in the air, urging a departure. The pink-haired rider, her expression serene yet determined, guided her horse forward beneath the vibrant, sunset-kissed sky. Under the watchful gaze of a full moon, a grand, ornate building stood silhouetted against the night sky. Inside, a maid, her eyes wide with alarm, rushed forward, her concern evident. She anxiously inquired about someone's injury, her voice filled with worry. The pink-haired woman, dressed in a flowing gown, sat pensively on an ornate settee, soft escaping her lips as if pondering a weighty decision. The pink-haired girl cheerfully admitted the demon's blood hadn't quite lived up to its reputation for toughness. Another, with shorter darker hair, warned her to be more cautious. Then a third voice, unseen but filled with outrage, erupted in defense of their young lady, clearly implying someone had dared to harm her. A veiled threat hung in the air, suggesting that someone's actions would prevent them from attending the imperial ball, assuming they had even been anticipating it. The maid, her face crumpled in apparent distress, seemed to be reacting strongly to the news. The pink-haired lady, a picture of innocent confusion, touched her finger to her cheek, genuinely surprised by the implication that she had been looking forward to the event, as if it were news to her. Someone teased a maid about ordering an excessive number of dresses for the imperial ball. Flustered and defensive, the maid insisted she was merely relieving stress through retail therapy. The teaser expressed sympathy that the maid couldn't attend this particularly spectacular ball, rumored to be graced by the presence of both the prince and her majesty. Due to her gongja duties, a promise of nightly ankle treatments was made, ensuring the pink-haired lady's attendance at an upcoming event. Relaxing on a chaise lounge, a wistful sigh escaped her lips as she lamented the unfairness of having no partner to accompany her. Suddenly, a sharp cry of awe indicated something unexpected had occurred. In a lavishly decorated room, a pink-haired lady, perched elegantly on a plush settee, inquired after the well-being of a raven, who responded with a resounding caw. Upside down in midair, the pink-haired girl in a navy uniform bragged about how cool she was earlier, convinced the Grand Duke would have fallen for her if he'd seen it. A second pink-haired girl, dressed in a frilly pale yellow dress, listened with a playful, love-struck expression. Clearly smitten with the first girl's antics, a raven swooped down, causing a small commotion as it landed on a jewelry box. The pink-haired lady, lounging elegantly on a chaise lounge, inquired if her raven companion was hungry. A maid, standing respectfully before her, awaited a response. A pink-haired young woman, dressed in a pale yellow gown, looked up with surprise as her maid informed her of an invitation from the imperial palace. The maid, clad in a dark uniform with white frills, added with a knowing smile that Raven seemingly desired the young lady's presence at the ball as well. A flustered maid reacted with exaggerated alarm to an unseen request, while a lady with pastel pink hair reclined on an ornate settee, a subtle smile playing on her lips as if she found the situation amusing. A small, dark raven squawked loudly, its wings spread as if echoing the maid's dramatic reaction to the bird's own bold request. A pink-haired girl, drawn in a cute, chibi style, grumbled about something being too troublesome for her to handle. The maid, her face etched with worry, sighed heavily, a single tear escaping her eye. A startled blackbird, perched on a nearby piece of furniture, chirped in apparent surprise or concern. Lord Gilbert's impeccable attire, especially for a certain young lady, was apparently the crux of the matter. A letter, resting atop an ornate book, hinted at a secret, something someone needed to see. The unspoken weight of the situation hung heavy in the air, a problem yet to be unraveled. A pink-haired lady, elegantly dressed, touched her face with a melancholic air, disappointed that the person she longed for hadn't arrived. She bitterly recalled the Grand Duke's rare visit to the capital, a fleeting presence that offered little solace. Her worry deepened as she remembered his absence during Rezin's perilous time. Emphasizing a concerning pattern of detachment, the pink-haired woman mused, a thoughtful expression shadowing her delicate features. Realizing something significant had shifted, she lamented the challenge of capturing the Grand Duke's attention, her touch to her chin suggesting a brewing plan. A sinister plan began to brew in the pink-haired woman's mind, her gaze fixed on a small, dark bird perched nearby. She pondered aloud, wondering if causing harm to Lord Gilberto would be the key to forcing the Grand Duke's presence. With a dramatic flourish, the maid swung a gleaming sword, her face a mask of disbelief at the order to toss such a seemingly valuable weapon into what she considered an absurdly extravagant poop bucket. The pink-haired girl, dressed in a lovely gown, greeted the morning with a cheerful good morning. She gracefully lifted her skirt, about to seek out her parents. A lavishly dressed man sat at the head of a long, opulent table, laden with food, his expression a mixture of impatience and annoyance as he observed the pink-haired girl approaching. Her soft apology hung in the air, tinged with a hint of nervousness as she stood before him. In a lavishly decorated room, Marquis Morgana gestured for someone unseen to be seated. A lavish table, laden with gourmet dishes, hinted at a grand feast. A spoon hovered over a delicate pudding, ready to break the smooth surface. Mavia's name was uttered, a summons or a declaration, in connection with the sweet treat. A maid poured tea as she inquired after the well-being of the pink-haired lady, seated at an ornate table, who quickly and cheerfully confirmed she was doing fine, her gaze lingering on a small dessert. He reassured her, urging her to confide in them if anything troubled her. She pondered, a subtle shift in her expression hinting at a concealed truth. Anxious, she wondered aloud if a certain Gilbert matter had been discovered. A sheepish admission followed. She caused quite a stir, leaving the consequences hanging in the air. With a dismissive chuckle, one person reassured the pink-haired lady not to fret. The lady, however, seemed to be considering a different solution, contemplating asking her parents for assistance, but with a noticeable hesitation. According to the original novel, a dark-haired man in elegant attire, possibly a nobleman, gazes thoughtfully from his gilded portrait frame. Below, the delicate image of a young woman with long, light hair and an elaborate hairpiece, named Mavia, emerges from a similar frame. Yet a caption reveals a tragic truth. Her parents always held her at arm's length, their affection a chilling void. A portrait of a pink-haired girl, framed by ornate carvings and shadowed flowers, hinted at a story of silent support and hidden burdens. Even on her 6th birthday, a small girl in a frilly dress watched her parents walk away, a poignant loneliness clinging to the grand hallway. The following Christmas, the little girl with rose-colored pigtails watched her elegantly dressed parents, seemingly preoccupied with a letter, while a maid hovered nearby with a knowing smile. The child's parents remained consumed by their business, leaving her feeling unseen. A flicker of suspicion crossed the pink-haired lady's face as she pondered the sudden influx of concern for her well-being. Amidst a backdrop of opulence, family discussed a delicate matter, the matriarch reassuring a concerned party not to fret over their child's transgression. With a subtle smirk, the elegant woman in a dark dress asserted their family's ability to handle any situation, even a messy one. Another, with bright pink hair, cheerfully confirmed the incident's quiet resolution. Much to everyone's relief, no assassins needed this time. The older woman, elegantly dressed, smirked as she tested the younger, pink-haired lady's memory, recalling a childhood incident. Startled and slightly flustered, the younger woman sputtered in surprise as she was reminded of a dramatic ploy from her past. The older woman continued, her smile widening, as she recounted how the younger one had once dramatically thrown herself onto the floor to prevent them from leaving. A blush crept across her face as a nervous laugh escaped her lips, betraying the memories she couldn't suppress. Under a stormy, lightning-cracked sky, a ship carrying half a family's fortune capsized into the churning waves. A disastrous investment in the treacherous shipping business. Frustrated that reasoning hadn't worked since the age of 7, the small child dramatically threw themselves onto the floor in a full-blown tantrum, wailing loudly, while the elegantly dressed adults, presumably their parents, looked on. The young woman with pink hair reminisced about a time long past, memories seemingly triggered by something in their current elegant setting. Another woman, perhaps her mother or an older sister, judging by her sophisticated attire and knowing expression, countered that the situation hadn't changed much at all. The older woman and a man seated nearby continued to regard the pink-haired lady with a fond yet patronizing air, their words implying she was still considered a child in their eyes. Despite the passage of time, someone reminisced about a time they hadn't realized the pink-haired girl, clutching a stuffed rabbit, was just a child. Her unusual maturity for her age led them to believe she didn't require the care and guidance of adults. This misconception had solidified in their minds over time, leaving them with a sense of regret. A sudden realization dawned, shattering a previous assumption. But that wasn't true. The elegant woman in the wide-brimmed hat, her pink hair framing a shocked expression, stared in disbelief at the man beside her, his own features etched with surprise. Tears streaming down her face, the pink-haired girl cried out desperately, pleading for her parents to stay with her. Elegant woman, her dark hair pulled back, gently held the other's hand, a soft smile gracing her lips as she drew the pink-haired woman's attention to something. Observing the subtle tremble in the younger woman's fingers, she teased her gently about her hidden worries. Even if a family's fortunes could shift, the narrator believed their fundamental atmosphere would remain constant. However, they realized, with a touch of melancholy, that their assumption had been incorrect. The pink-haired lady, seated gracefully, whispered a heartfelt "Thank you, Mom, Dad," clutching something small and precious to her chest. Over tea and pastries, one woman slyly inquired about another's lack of a ball partner, receiving a surprised and flustered confirmation. A mischievous maid, feeling trapped, hatched a plan to attend the ball with her parents. A rare family outing, with a mischievous glint in her eye and hands raised in mock protest. The pink-haired girl insisted she hadn't been planning on attending the ball at all. As a raven swooped overhead, a loud caw punctuated her seemingly innocent denial. Amidst a lavish tea party, a raven startled the pink-haired lady, prompting a surprised cry of "Raven?" As the bird quickly flew past, someone nearby apologized, flustered, explaining the raven's incredible speed. Across a table laden with delicate pastries, a dark-haired man watched with a mixture of surprise and curiosity as the pink-haired woman excitedly presented a small bird. Beaming, she confirmed it was indeed hers, a creature she'd personally raised. A worried thought bubbled above the pink-haired noblewoman as she eyed her companion. Across the opulent table, concerned their sharp eyes might uncover a monstrous secret. Her companion, seemingly oblivious, sat calmly, his hand resting on the pristine tablecloth. The woman touched her chin, her expression pensive and troubled by the dangerous possibility. A heavy silence fell between them, punctuated only by the unspoken anxiety swirling in the air. A woman with elegant pink hair, holding a small, dark creature, chuckled at a remark about her changed taste. With a playful assumption, she hurried off, convinced her absence was noticed by a hungry companion. The pink-haired girl, clutching a small dark object, was questioned about her actions. A sense of urgency hung in the air as she was pressed to reveal any pressing news. With a startled cry, a small dark creature spat out a golden object, sending it flying through the air. The creature wondered aloud if the projectile might, in fact, be the imperial seal. A small girl with rosy hair, adorned with a delicate pearl headband, looked curiously at a tiny, dark bird perched on her outstretched hand, a small object clutched in her other palm, seemingly questioning its connection to a recent ball invitation. A desperate plea for partnership hung in the air, met with an inquisitive chirp from a small, dark bird with wide, curious eyes, a finger pointed upwards, urging a small, bewildered raven to consider their height difference as it hovered in the air. Surrounded by musical notes and sparkles, a clear look, escaping someone's lips, the pink-haired lady, dressed in a stunning black and silver gown, twirled gracefully across the ballroom floor, a small, dark bird flitting around her as musicians played a lively tune. A harsh truth hung in the air. Without the skill of dance, partnership was impossible, and the scorecards bearing zeros reflected a bleak reality. A dark, fluttering shape cawed loudly, catching the pink-haired girl's attention. She trailed off mid-sentence, a dawning realization spreading across her face. Dread filled her as she braced herself for an unwelcome revelation. The pink-haired woman gasped, a delighted flush rising on her cheeks as she realized the thrilling truth. He was really coming. Through a frosted windowpane, a horse-drawn carriage waited patiently in the snow, as someone announced to an unseen noble that the preparations for the capital procession were complete. A subtly menacing question hung in the air, laced with unspoken threats as one man, his back to the reader, offered another a chilling choice in mode of departure. A command was given to follow shortly after the first person's departure. A sharp, immediate yes indicated a ready and willing compliance. A grand, Gothic-style building, topped with a cross and intricate spires, radiated an ethereal glow as snow gently fell around it, a shimmering aura hinting at something magical occurring within, surrounded by swirling, glowing symbols. The dark-haired man in the ornate jacket lowered his gaze, a shadow of contemplation passing over his features. His intense blue eyes, framed by dark hair, narrowed as if piercing through an unseen barrier. A mystical energy swirling around him. In a sunlit, opulent room, an unseen person's arrival was acknowledged with an offer of fresh tea. The visitor, however, politely declined, explaining they had a brief but important message to deliver. The elegantly dressed woman expressed her gratitude for the invitation to the ball, her eyes shining with anticipation. The man, in his formal attire, brushed off her thanks with a kind yet slightly patronizing, "Don't mention it, child." With a wistful glance, the pink-haired girl softly questioned if she could embrace childish innocence just once more. An unseen voice reassured her, promising to take care of the ancestral contract if that was her concern. With a touch of defiance, the pink-haired woman insisted on fulfilling the contract, her gaze fixed on someone unseen across the opulent table, laden with pastries. A worried voice questioned if, besides young Master Gilbert, the other men in a certain family were all only children. The formally dressed man and woman exchanged horrified glances, the implications of the question dawning on them. A chibi character with pink hair cried out in protest against the disturbing idea being discussed. With a mischievous glint in her eye and a playful smirk, the pink-haired lady coyly inquired about the availability of another unmarried gentleman. a subtle cough punctuating her suggestive tone. The revelation that the person in question was the Grand Duke Kalaka stunned everyone. An elderly, cloaked figure, possibly a servant, shakily addressed a pink-haired woman with a respectful madam. Clutching a sword far too large for him, the pink-haired lady, with a mischievous glint in her eyes, pointed a finger upwards, confidently, asserting her point to the formally dressed people at the table. A reminder echoed, emphasizing a crucial detail: the Grand Duke, a figure of power and authority, was universally recognized by his age and shock of white hair. A noble woman calmly stated her understanding, while a man in ornate attire reacted with shocked disbelief, desperately pleading with her to reconsider what appeared to be a shocking decision. With a wistful air, the speaker confessed to Eve that they had been distant, admitting their ignorance of the true object of Eve's affections. Eve, her pink hair vibrant against the opulent backdrop, clasped her hands to her chest, a mixture of surprise and joy illuminating her features as she breathed, "Mother," to maids, seemingly startled, covered their mouths upon hearing a question about the Grand Duke, though denying any current arrangement. One confidently predicted the Duke's presence at the upcoming ball, resolving to speak with him then. To compensate for their lack of recent communication, someone suggested a family trip on the very day of the ball, leaving the pink-haired girl utterly bewildered. A route to Alasia was marked on an age map, the name confirmed with approval. A pink-haired girl, eyes wide with a mix of excitement and mischief, realized Alasia's strategic location with a touch of nervous anticipation. Flustered, the pink-haired girl insisted to her mother that she had it all wrong, waving her hands defensively as she explained that the Grand Duke appeared much younger than his actual age. With a chillingly sweet smile and eyes that held a disturbing glint, the elegant woman, adorned in finery, addressed someone as "our lovely baby," her words dripping with false affection before sharply commanding them to pack their bags. With a confident air and a slight smile, the pink-haired lady in the lavender gown decided on her footwear for the occasion. Lost in a whimsical daydream, the pink-haired lady twirled with imaginary fans, wondering aloud which one would best suit her. Her maid, observing the playful scene, softly addressed her. The pink-haired girl, dressed in a beautiful gown, fidgeted, a playful glint in her eyes as she was teased about her obvious excitement for the ball despite earlier claims of disinterest. The maid pondered aloud, wondering if the lady's distress stemmed from the Grand Duke's unexpectedly youthful appearance. The lady in the elegant gown, clutching a delicate fan, quickly hushed her. The subject, clearly a sensitive one, the maid, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and concern, declared that the rumor had already spread like wildfire throughout the entire mansion. The possibility of the Grand Duke's absence from the ball, or worse, his presence as an elderly man, filled her with dread. She gripped her fan tightly, a nervous tremor in her hand, and resolved to flee to the neighboring continent to recuperate from the potential disappointment. A nervous pink-haired woman in an elegant white gown anxiously clutched a decorative fan, wondering about the Grand Duke's arrival. Her unease grew as she called out for Raven, determined to double-check on something crucial. A worried thought bubbled up. Someone hadn't seen him since morning. Panic flared as another thought followed close behind. Had he perhaps run away? The maid inquired about Raven, her curiosity piqued. The lady in the elaborate gown, a blush creeping up her cheeks, dismissed the question with a nervous laugh and a cryptic "it's nothing." Rain lashed down upon the grand imperial ballroom, its ornate dome gleaming under the stormy sky. Amidst the grandeur of a ballroom, whispers of a juicy rumor spread like wildfire. The newly arrived, devastatingly handsome adopted son of the Grand Duke was the subject of excited chatter. Apparently, this captivating young man had recently engaged in a very public lover's quarrel with Lady Mebia, right in the middle of the street. Amidst the grandeur of a formal gathering, a striking man in a dark suit and ornate brooch captivated the attention of a woman in a rich purple gown, sparking quiet whispers of surprise from a blonde onlooker, who noted how easily the formerly proud Lady Mebia seemed smitten. Amidst a grand ballroom, whispers of possibility hung in the air, hinting at a surprising turn of events. The elegant woman, adorned with flowers in her hair, turned, a faint blush coloring her cheeks as someone admired her beauty and sharp business sense. With a sardonic smirk, the elegantly dressed man questioned another's business acumen. He recounted the tale of a quarry purchased for a hefty sum by a certain lady, now overrun by monsters and forced to close. A curious question about a woman's childhood hung in the air, leaving the elegantly dressed lady with a thoughtful expression, with a sly smile playing on her lips. The redhead hinted at something more, her words trailing off behind a delicately held fan. A warning, sharp and laced with respect, echoed around the elegant lady with pink hair as she sipped her tea, seemingly unfazed by the gravity of the unspoken words. The pink-haired woman savored her drink, a mischievous glint in her eyes, as she complimented its quality, savoring the delicious wine and the strains of beautiful classical music. Someone reveled in the sheer perfection of the moment within a grand, opulent room. Alone in a lavish room, the pink-haired lady in a ruffled blue gown anxiously wondered aloud why the Grand Duke hadn't arrived. Mistaking a bird dropping a twig for a more significant sign, the pink-haired woman, elegant in white gloves and dress, wondered if her hopeful anticipation had led her astray. Doubting her own perception, she questioned if it was merely a trick of her mind. A pink-haired lady, adorned in a beautiful gown and gloves, anxiously wondered aloud why her awaited guest hadn't arrived yet. The red-haired woman in a lavish pink gown greeted another, seemingly named Mebia, with a polite, if slightly strained, pleasantry. A pink-haired woman, her back to the reader, reacted to the greeting with a soft, questioning murmur of what sounded like Monica, a flicker of surprise evident in her tone. The pink-haired woman, dressed in a delicate white gown, questioned the absence of someone with a bright smile. Her red-haired companion seemed to ponder whether a certain Monica had heard the news about the Grand Duke, finding the situation a nuisance. The thought of Monica's involvement sparked a knowing look, as if anticipating a predictable reaction. A teasing voice suggested that Mebia had a penchant for older gentlemen. The speaker's imagined reaction hilariously exaggerated in a thought bubble. Flustered, the pink-haired lady clutched her chest, the mere thought seemingly distressing. Clarifying her previous reaction, she quickly amended that her distress was about her response, not the implication itself. The pink-haired girl, seemingly innocent, awaited a response while the elegant redhead in a magnificent gown, then held delicately before her face, registered the question with a surprised huh. A demand for the reply hung heavy in the air, intensifying the anticipation between them. Clutching a fan, the fiery-haired woman, adorned in a pink gown and a jeweled brooch, seethed with anticipation over a long-awaited reply. Her suppressed frustration erupted as she demanded to know why her letter had gone unanswered. The pink-haired lady, adorned in a delicate white gown, touched her forehead with a gloved hand, a puzzled expression clouding her features as she insisted she had no memory of any letter. A gasp escaped her lips, followed by a fearful whisper. "Don't tell me." Her eyes fell upon a letter, its contents filled with accusations of abandonment and a missed opportunity to choose a ball gown. A sudden, quiet realization dawned. Was the fateful day at the dress shop the cause of this current predicament? The redhead, clearly agitated, confirmed the letter's arrival, emphasizing her impatient wait for a response. The pink-haired lady, seemingly caught off guard, touched her face delicately, a hint of surprise in her expression. With a dismissive air, the first woman retorted that she hadn't considered the letter worthy of a reply. The red-haired character erupted in fury, demanding to know what the pink-haired girl had just uttered. The girl, seemingly unfazed by the outburst, meekly claimed to have misspoken and offered a quick apology. A pink-haired woman, adorned in a delicate gown, offered a sly, knowing smile, her fingers toying with the necklace, seemingly plotting something. Amidst the grandeur of her surroundings, she elegantly turned, the ruffle of her exquisite dress swaying with a quiet rustle, her gloved hand poised as if about to make a dramatic gesture. With a gentle touch and a sincere apology to Monica, the pink-haired woman admitted to having been preoccupied lately. She confessed, with a tinge of regret, that her recent stress had led her to lash out at someone she hardly knew. The pink-haired woman, adorned in a delicate gown and gloves, held the redhead close, a gentle smile playing on her lips, while a look of uncertainty flickered across the other woman's blushing face as a plea for forgiveness hung heavy in the air. A character, seemingly apologetic, trailed off mid-sentence. Another character urgently warned against actions requiring apologies. The pink-haired Monica, unfazed, high-fived the redhead, who reacted with a flustered excitement. The redhead, admiring Monica's steadfastness, expressed her approval. The redhead, her gown a swirl of pink, passionately declared she wasn't falling for any compliments about her constant beauty, punctuating her words with a dramatic flourish of her fan. The pink-haired lady, a picture of confusion, silently questioned the outburst, her expression clearly showing her bewilderment. A quiet thought bubble formed above her head. She hadn't even mentioned the other woman's looks, flustered and slightly defensive. The red-haired woman in the elaborate pink gown insisted she wasn't there for frivolous chatter, but for serious business discussions. Amidst the opulent ballroom, a subtle tension hung in the air as one man suggested another discuss business with his parents, specifically regarding some land. The redhead informed the pink-haired lady that the quarry she had purchased a decade ago was now teeming with monsters near a simple wooden gate. A mysterious figure revealed they were funding monster research. Intrigued, someone named Mashes inquired about purchasing the land. The pink-haired woman refused the request, Much to the redhead's indignant surprise, the redhead, gesturing emphatically, pointed out the apparent uselessness of the land in question to the other woman. With a fervent declaration of upholding someone's honor, grand ornate doors swung open, revealing a blinding light from within. As a stunned onlooker gasped, the imposing figure of young Lord Gilbert Colachus made a grand entrance, his presence immediately commanding the room. The silver-haired man, adorned in a lavish, light blue and white uniform, offered a knowing, almost predatory smile, his red eyes gleaming with an intriguing mix of amusement and calculation. Anxiety filled the air as the pink-haired lady clutched her head, lamenting that the person they were waiting for wasn't coming, her distress evident to her red-haired companion. The redhead, adorned with elegant earrings, turned away dismissively, muttering about everyone's questionable taste in men. With a swirl of her elegant pink gown and a fleeting promise to return soon, the red-haired woman gracefully excused herself, leaving the pink-haired lady momentarily bewildered. The fiery-haired woman in a pink gown clasped her hands to her chest, a delighted gasp escaping her lips as she beamed, seemingly oblivious to the silver-haired man beside her, and the shocked gasp of the pink-haired woman in the background. The pink-haired woman clutched her head in disbelief, a dawning horror creeping across her face as a shocking realization struck her. They knew each other. A wave of panic washed over her as she wondered about a possible hidden connection, a secret she hadn't been privy to. The weight of the unknown threatened to overwhelm her, pushing her to the brink of madness. Someone anxiously wondered what sort of chaos the pink-haired woman, Monica, was about to unleash as she dramatically swept into the grand golden room. Amidst the opulent ballroom, the silver-haired gentleman, subtly acknowledging someone named Mebia, smoothly steered the conversation towards resuming a prior business discussion with the two elegant ladies at his side, one a vibrant redhead, the other adorned in delicate pink. The silver-haired nobleman, a subtle smile playing on his lips, greeted the pink-haired lady, Mebia, assuring her that her arrival was perfectly timed. Mebia, her expression guarded, admitted she had business with Monica. He expressed relief at her healthy appearance. She retorted sharply, confirming her ankle's good condition. Contrary to some people's wishes, he, seemingly surprised, addressed her, while onlookers whispered about a possible lover's quarrel. A sly grin spread across the silver-haired man's face, as he playfully acknowledged his companion's wit, with a dismissive air. The silver-haired nobleman offered a curt goodbye, a hint of smug satisfaction playing on his lips. He gently took the hand of the pink-haired lady beside him, urging her to leave. The redhead, witnessing this scene, whispered a shocked, almost disbelieving, "Ma Mebia." Within the opulent hall, a voice challenged Lady Mebia, suggesting a public discussion of important matters, while onlookers, including a woman in a yellow gown, murmured about a potential betrothal as a pink-haired lady and a distinguished gentleman stood together. With a dismissive air, the pink-haired woman challenged her unseen companion to speak their mind about her power, her expression hinting at a deeper, cynical layer to her words. A quiet bitterness tinged her next muttered observation, a declaration that no one in their current company was worthy of her trust. Under the warm glow of a chandelier, a fervent vow of protecting a lady's honor hung in the air, only to be met with a sharp, demanding "Then what?" Amidst the grandeur of a ballroom, a hush fell over the attendees as Lady Mebia's name was announced, her vibrant red hair contrasting sharply with the pale pink gown of another noblewoman. Before her, a man with silver hair knelt, his posture suggesting a formal plea related to a previous agreement. Amidst a backdrop of shimmering elegance and blooming flowers, the silver-haired nobleman knelt, a hopeful gleam in his eyes as he extended a heartfelt proposal of marriage. A cunning plan was hatched, a public proposal designed to be irresistible. The silver-haired schemer, a small dark earring glinting in his ear, smirked, anticipating the success of his trap. Even if rejected, he mused, the target, Mebia, would find her options severely limited. A chilling whisper sealed Mebia's fate. There was no escape. With a delicate click, a star-shaped box was opened, revealing a stunning ring with a mesmerizing amethyst gemstone nestled within. With a chilling intensity, the silver-haired man, his face marked with crimson, offered a ring, his words a dark command, "Mebia, become my wife." A man with silver hair, dressed in ornate attire, cried out in anguish, blood trickling down his face as he clutched a small jeweled box. His voice choked with emotion as he stammered about its contents. With a sinister glint in her eyes, the pink-haired woman in the elaborate gown raised a near-empty wine bottle, a dark liquid dripping from its mouth as she questioned the situation unfolding before her. Under the shimmering chandeliers of a grand, opulent hall, someone stammered, surprised by an unexpected arrival. Anxiety crept in as the person wondered aloud if they had done something to warrant this visit. The sharply dressed man strode confidently through the grand hall, assuring someone unseen that his presence was merely a formality, nothing to be alarmed about. Bowing low to figures, cloaked in rich fabrics, questioned his motives. Wondering aloud why he had bypassed the festivities to come directly to them, intrigued. He wondered who currently held the throne. Observing the familiar figure of the king in the distance, he deduced that not much time had passed. 15 years prior, a nobleman, clad in rich fabrics and gripping a golden scepter, breathed a strained, hesitant yes. The young nobleman, adorned in an elaborate white uniform with dark accents, reported to his father with visible concern, his hand gripping his chest as he revealed the North's blatant disregard for the imperial decree. He pleaded with his father, the implied emperor, for a decisive command to address the escalating rebellion. A stern warning was issued against interfering with the North. For a young man in pristine white uniform, hand on his chest, was declared the sole controller of the monstrous threat. A shadowed figure clutching a textured fabric started to object. A young man, adorned in a finely detailed uniform, looked up with a mixture of apprehension and surprise as someone addressed him as son. He was then sternly told to listen carefully, the gravity of the situation hanging heavy in the air. A window, illuminated by a flash of lightning against the backdrop of a stormy night, swung open with a dramatic crash. Below, a stern-faced man in a richly decorated military uniform sat rigidly, his hands clasped tightly, his expression a mask of troubled contemplation. Surrounded by an ethereal purple glow, the dark-haired man in elegant attire exuded an otherworldly presence, his very being a testament to his non-human nature. The waiter, aghast, realized the wine he was carrying cost more than his yearly earnings, while the pink-haired lady clutched a bottle with equal shock, her red-haired companion staring in disbelief. Amidst a scene of carnage with a shattered jewelry box and a spilled pool of blood, the silver-haired man stared in disbelief at the ring lying beside it, a single word escaping his lips, heavy with meaning, this. Within a grand, opulent hall, bathed in the soft glow of a chandelier, someone's actions sparked a shocked outburst, demanding to know what they were doing. The pink-haired lady, initially believing it all a dream, was stunned into momentary confusion, clutching a wine bottle. Regret washed over her as she lamented the wasted wine, apologizing profusely to a Mr. Gilbert, while the red-haired woman beside her looked on with concerned eye, with a bloodied head and evident fury. The silver-haired man in ornate attire lashed out, dismissing someone's explanation as a pathetic excuse and questioning their maturity. Amidst a gathering of elegantly dressed nobles, a woman with dark hair and a purple gown appealed to the crowd, seeking their agreement with a pointed question. A brunette in a pale blue dress, her hands clasped tightly, seemed to hold her breath in anticipation, a bead of sweat trickling down her cheek. The man beside her, adorned in a dark, ornate outfit, observed the scene with a knowing smirk playing on his lips. Two elegantly dressed women observed a scene unfolding before them. One fanning herself nervously as a man, presumably Mr. Gilbert, stood stiffly with crossed arms, seemingly rejected. The brunette confirmed her companion's suspicion that Mr. Gilbert's affections were unrequited. A tinge of pity in her voice, amidst a grand ballroom, a woman in a flowing gown turned her back to a man in military-style attire, a spilled drink staining the floor between them, while unseen onlookers questioned the intensity of his pursuit. As the lady glided away, a dark-haired man watched intently, his back to the reader, his posture suggesting both intrigue and concern. A small group of elegantly dressed onlookers beside him whispering amongst themselves, amidst a backdrop of opulence. The silver-haired man let out a low, almost sinister chuckle, his gaze fixed on the pink-haired woman in an elaborate gown. He burst into a louder, more unrestrained laugh, the sound carrying a chilling edge that contrasted sharply with the elegant surroundings and the woman's seemingly oblivious demeanor. A pink-haired woman, adorned with delicate jewelry, offered a chillingly smug observation, implying her opponent had underestimated her. The vast Ravana Empire stood tall and imposing, its naval trade, once a source of power, now crumbled, weakening. The royal family's grip, a lone ship, caught in a swirling tempest, seemed to mirror the empire's declining fortunes. An empty throne, gleaming gold and crimson, awaited a ruler strong enough to reclaim their lost authority. In the wake of some unknown event, a trio of affluent families consolidated their influence, amassing a vast fortune symbolized by a treasure chest overflowing with gold and jewels, gleaming ominously against a dark backdrop. In the Elaine Duchy, a red-haired woman in a lavish purple gown stood confidently, a delicate fin held close, her gaze suggesting a hidden agenda as figures blurred. In the background, beneath the glowing emblem of the Morgause Duchy, a young knight stood resolute, his gaze fixed on the gleaming blade he held, a silent promise etched in his serious expression. The pink-haired lady, adorned in a delicate gown and elegant jewelry, exuded an air of quiet confidence, a subtle smile playing on her lips. Seemingly a member of the Morgana Duchy, a family of impeccable reputation and esteemed character, stood out among their peers. Their high standing meant that in any conflict, the other party was almost always deemed to be in the wrong. Someone called out a name, Mibia, capturing the pink-haired girl's attention in what seemed like a grand hall. The elegantly dressed woman, with a slight smirk, offered reassurance to her son, subtly urging him to call if needed. He, seemingly uncomfortable yet polite, acknowledged her concern with a strained thank you. Clutching his drink, a young woman with bright pink hair beamed with gratitude for the older woman's motherly care. Formally dressed man, seemingly distressed, addressed a young woman named Mibia. Standing before her, a white-haired man, adorned in a decorated uniform and marked with blood, stood rigidly. Mibia, with her vibrant pink hair, listened as the first man implored her to consider Gilbert's reputation amidst the unfolding, tense situation. Baron Kalin, a touch flustered yet clearly pleased, stammered out a hesitant, hopeful yes. A gloved hand pointed accusingly down at the wounded man, delivering a chilling warning that his current strategy wouldn't save him. Looking shaken and bloodied, the silver-haired man clutched his injured hand, his gaze fixed on the looming threat, while his companion looked on with concern. A heavy silence hung in the air, punctuated by a final, ominous command to act wisely. Through a rain-streaked window, a grand ballroom buzzed with activity. Two elegantly dressed women at the center, seemingly in a tense exchange, while other guests looked on with a dry chuckle. The silver-haired man in the ornate uniform mused that sanity seemed to be a rare commodity, regardless of geographic location. His gaze sweeping over the two women before him, one with vibrant pink hair, in a delicate white gown, and the other with rich auburn locks, both wearing expressions of quiet concern. The pink-haired lady, adorned in a shimmering white gown, reacted to a request for a self-introduction with a playful, knowing laugh and a sly point of her finger, her eyes crinkling in amusement. A looming figure's foot descended, casting a shadow of fear over the two elegantly dressed women, one gasping dramatically. Someone politely interrupted a formally dressed man and his elaborately dressed companion. Formally dressed man bowed deeply before the pink-haired lady. Mabia, conveying the Majesty's request for a private audience. The pink-haired lady, with a sly smirk, gestured towards herself, a silent question hanging in the air. A man in formal attire, his face slick with a thin sheen of sweat, breathed a strained yes, his gloved hand clutching at his chest as if his heart pounded a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The unsettling revelation hung heavy in the air. He had been waiting, patiently, for this moment all along. Beneath the rain-swept archway, the pink-haired woman in a flowing gown shivered, a soft complaint of the cold escaping her lips as a dark-suited figure approached her from behind. A torrential downpour lashed against the ornate towers of a grand estate, the rain exceeding even the fiercest monsoon. The pink-haired girl, clad in a delicate gown, looked up at the imposing, dark-cloaked figure, with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. A silent, "What is it?" forming in her mind. A palpable tension hung in the rain-soaked air around the imposing castle, prompting a worried whisper. A usually composed figure walked away, their back to the viewer, their posture betraying a surprising disarray. The observer noted the figure's unusually pale complexion, adding to the sense of unease. The pink-haired lady in the elegant blue gown, seemingly startled by a sudden approach, inquired about the reason for the king's summons. His face, shadowed with a grim understanding, tightened as he lowered his monocle, the weight of an unspoken truth pressing heavily upon him. Under a rain-swept archway, a voice accused the pink-haired girl in a delicate gown, blaming her for a mysterious misdeed. Startled, she breathed a confused pardon, her wide eyes reflecting the downpour and the weight of the accusation. Caught in the downpour, the pink-haired girl's worried gaze pierced through the falling rain. A delicate floral adornment nestled in her tresses. Under a melancholic, rain-swept sky, the pink-haired girl paused, a familiar voice echoing through the courtyard, catching her attention and sparking a flicker of recognition. With a hurried "Excuse me, I'll be right back," someone disappeared, leaving the scene as another voice urgently called out for young Lady Mibia amidst a downpour. He called out urgently, his voice echoing down the long, shadowy corridor as the red-haired woman in a flowing gown drifted further away. Trapped beneath a crackling web of electrical energy, a figure despaired, bracing for the inevitable. Under a melancholic, rain-swept sky, a gloved hand gently cupped another's face, a soft inquiry about their distress hanging in the air. Someone explained Mibia's unusual behavior by revealing a childhood head injury that left her with a penchant for the peculiar. A blood-stained cloth was clutched tightly, a single accusing word escaping trembling lips. "You?" The crimson-haired woman, adorned in a delicate pink gown, gazed with a mix of wonder and uncertainty. Softly questioning the lengths to which someone was going for her sake, he stared down at her, a flicker of something unreadable in his intense gaze. Under a rain-swept gazebo, a confession hung heavy in the air. Because I understand you. Under a rain-swept gazebo, a confession hung in the air. One woman, her vibrant red hair a stark contrast to the other's delicate pink, admitted a shared dislike for a third party, unseen but clearly a source of mutual disdain. The pink-haired woman, adorned in a delicate white dress, confessed a dark secret. Her gaze fixed on something beyond the panel, she harbored a bitter desire for another woman's downfall, craving her unhappiness and envying her success. Tormented by a seemingly inappropriate relationship, the observer pondered whether ignorance was bliss. Walking away, they reasoned, would sever the impropriety. A vision then shimmered before them, the couple, the fiery-haired woman radiant in a flowing gown, embraced by her silver-haired companion, a picture of fairy-tale bliss. Despite the hesitant but a firm voice declared that's enough. As the red-haired woman in the elegant gown paused beneath the falling rain, a flicker of surprise in her bright eyes, startled. The woman with vibrant red hair and delicate bows stammered, her eyes wide with surprise as she addressed the pink-haired figure before her. The pink-haired woman's gaze hardened, a flicker of steely resolve in her normally gentle eyes as rain fell around her. Under a somber, rain-swept sky, the red-haired woman, her laughter laced with a chilling undertone, confirmed the eavesdropper's worst fear. They had heard every word. Monica Lane's name hung in the air, followed by a solemn offer of a single, final piece of advice. The pink-haired woman, dressed in an elegant gown, stood in a grand, dimly lit hall, her expression grave as she prepared to deliver her weighty words. The silver-haired man, adorned in a richly decorated uniform, leaned in, his warning about a certain bastard sharp and urgent. The red-haired woman, her expression a mixture of apprehension and defiance, absorbed his words with a visible tension. He continued, his voice low, implying that even a single encounter with this unnamed individual was too great a risk. Silver-haired man, his expression shadowed, breathed the name Mebia. Like a whispered curse or a prayer, he turned, his voice laced with a desperate warning, telling her she shouldn't have come. The elegant redhead gasped, her gloved hands flying to her mouth in a mixture of shock and excitement. The pink-haired woman gasped, her eyes wide with alarm and a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. As she cried out a name, Mebia, a chilling realization washed over the pink-haired woman as a scarred hand reached for her throat, her breath catching in her chest as she lamented her lowered defenses. Regret gnawed at her, the weight of her curiosity now a tangible threat. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Well, perhaps. As the fiery-haired woman cried out in apparent distress, her pink gown a stark contrast to the steely glint of a sword held menacingly close. With a serene, almost melancholic smile, the pink-haired woman accepted the inevitable, predetermined end. A sudden, sharp sound echoed through the rainy night, startling the stillness. The pink-haired woman, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief, was held back, a chilling voice reminding her of her recklessness. With a strained voice, the silver-haired man demanded to be released, his hand reaching out as if grasping for something lost. A quiet, but firm voice insisted it was time to leave. Bathed in an ethereal blue glow, a man with sharp features and intense eyes, dressed in ornate dark attire, looked upon someone with a mixture of possessiveness and something akin to paternal affection, uttering a loaded "my son." Under a crescent moon, a lone figure stood, his back to a trio of powerful magical beasts, a testament to his strength that defied the odd descriptions painted of him in the novel. The Duke was a recluse, rarely seen, and those few who had glimpsed him remained mysteriously silent. A dark, decadent aura clung to him, amplified by his pitch-black uniform. The man's gaze, framed by devilishly sharp, long-eye corners, held an extraordinary sensuality. A darkly handsome man, adorned in a sophisticated, almost gothic attire with shimmering jewelry, cast a pensive gaze downwards, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips, as if a description he'd heard was utterly insufficient for the novel he envisioned. Under a melancholic, rain-swept sky, the pink-haired woman in a delicate gown gasped, her hands flying to her mouth as a dark-haired man, clad in formal attire, called out to her affectionately. In a moment of panic, the pink-haired girl, dressed in an elaborate white gown, desperately cried out to her father, claiming a misunderstanding and accusing another woman of orchestrating the situation. As two figures firmly grasped the elegantly dressed young man, a voice offered to escort him, the tone laced with an unsettling politeness. Struggling against their hold, the captive demanded to be released, his voice strained with desperation. Turning to a more sympathetic figure with long hair and dressed in a muted gray tunic, The young man cried out, his words filled with anguish and bewilderment at his father's coldness. The pink-haired girl, adorned with a delicate floral bow, cried out desperately for her father amidst a backdrop of falling rain and a dimly lit structure. Under a torrential downpour, a desperate voice called out for Lady Mebia, their words almost swallowed by the rain and wind. Under a somber, rain-swept sky, the pink-haired woman addressed a man in military regalia as Your Majesty, her expression a mix of apprehension and urgency. The Majesty, seemingly troubled, pondered her words while a dark-suited figure stood stiffly behind him, his face an unreadable mask. Hesitantly, the Majesty admitted his reluctance to ask a certain favor, the weight of the unspoken request heavy in the air. Under a somber, rain-swept sky, one man turned his back on another. Cryptic instructions hanging in the air. A meeting with the Duke had been arranged, but the arranger would be mysteriously absent. With a quiet yes, understood, the pink-haired woman accepted the message. A flicker of apprehension crossed her delicate features. As she realized the Duke had used the Emperor's aide to summon her, a gasp escaped her lips. As she stumbled, drawing concerned glances from the pink-haired woman and the older, richly dressed man nearby, under the dreary glow of a street lamp in the rain, with a disapproving sigh, one observed the other's retreating figure, muttering about their spoiled nature and the unfortunate habits it had fostered. A scarred man with piercing blue eyes emerged from the shadows, a chilling glint in his gaze, beneath the twilight sky, speckled with the glitter of a distant celebration. A dark-haired man in elegant attire announced his departure, his words falling upon the ear of another, whose face remained unseen, obscured by a cascade of brown hair. Under a somber, rain-swept sky, the formally dressed man offered to escort Lady Monica, a gesture that seemed to take the pink-haired woman by surprise. Rain lashed against the ornate facade of a grand, whimsical-looking building, the downpour a melancholic symphony against its colorful walls and towers. Beneath a rain-swept gazebo, a dark-haired man in ornate military attire stood before a pink-haired woman in a flowing white gown, her gasp suggesting a sudden, tense encounter. A dark and imposing figure, adorned in ornate finery and a crimson jewel, exuded an aura of menace, a villain amongst villains. The question lingered, was his presence terrifying enough to inspire immediate flight? Mebia, known for her superficial judgments, found herself captivated by someone's undeniable handsomeness, her usual shallow thoughts taking over. Under a somber, rain-swept sky, he demanded to know why she had rejected Gilbert's proposal, his voice laced with a mixture of confusion and perhaps a touch of accusation. Beneath the somber sky, a pink-haired woman in a delicate gown pensively touched her neck, a flicker of doubt crossing her face as she considered a potential marriage partner who, at first glance, seemed perfectly suitable. Under a dusky, starlit sky, the dark-haired man, adorned in a richly embellished uniform, questioned a proposal, demanding to know the true motivation behind such a desire to marry him. He pressed a gloved hand to his chest, his expression a mixture of suspicion and intrigue, needing to understand the reason for the unexpected offer. With a thoughtful well, the pink-haired lady, adorned with flowers and lace, seemed to be contemplating something important. A dark, swirling image of a book's pages revealed a cryptic message. The narrator, haunted by foresight, had made a pivotal choice, rejecting someone. The ominous narration revealed that in the original story, right after their wedding, Gilbert had imprisoned Mebia in the desolate north. 6 months passed, and the pink-haired woman, bundled in a fur-trimmed cloak against the softly falling snow, received a summons back to the capital, a summons laced with sinister undertones. Bathed in the warm glow of a flickering candle, the naive Mebia, her face alight with pure joy, delicately held the letter, her eyes tracing each word with uncontainable delight. A skull adorned with dark roses and entangled in thorns, dripped with a sinister, viscous liquid, a chilling omen of the unknown horrors awaiting her. In a dimly lit room, a dark-haired man, lounging in an ornate chair with a book in hand, subtly suggested to the pink-haired person before him that they needn't leave. He then extended a quiet invitation, offering them the option to stay. The dark-haired man, adorned in an elaborate, high-collared garment, stood with a knowing look, a secret held within his gaze. It was revealed that he, and he alone, had delivered a crucial warning to an unnamed woman, a premonition of danger hanging heavy in the air. The pink-haired girl, Mebia, looked down, a troubled expression clouding her features as the shocking truth was revealed. Her fear wasn't directed at who everyone expected, but rather at the unseen you. Her desperate attempt to flee ended abruptly, her escape cut short by Gilbert. A solitary, imposing tower pierced the ominous blood-red sky, framed by the stark silhouette of barren branches. A dramatic pause hung in the air, shattered by the whispered words, "But you a promise." A threat, or perhaps a desperate plea. A cunning smirk played on the ragged woman's lips as she gazed at the uniformed man held captive. Behind iron bars, a silent exchange passing between them in the dimly lit cell. The elegantly dressed man, his gaze intense, inquired if someone would return to the north. He offered a helping hand, it seemed, until the very end. Though their hands never met in the end. He reached out, a silent, agonizing plea towards her crumpled, heartbroken form. The imposing man, adorned in a military-style uniform and a cape, stood bathed in an ethereal glow, questioning another's motives for aiding Mibia. Amidst a dark, blood-splattered backdrop, a chilling certainty hung in the air. Had Mibia accepted the offered hand, her fate would have been drastically different. Spared from a tragic and wretched demise, with a sly, determined glint in her eye, the pink-haired woman in the elegant gown extended a gloved hand towards Edis, inviting him to dance. A thought bubble revealed her unwavering resolve to finally be with him, this time for sure. Amidst a gentle rain, the dark-haired man extended a silent invitation to dance to the woman with flowing pink locks. With a playful glint in her eye and a slight touch to her cheek, the pink-haired lady in the elegant gown suggested a dance, promising to answer any questions her partner might have. But beneath her charming smile, a hidden thought revealed her true intention. She planned to keep some secrets close to her chest. He held her close, a stark contrast between his dark attire and her ornate, light-colored gown, as she gazed at him with a question in her eyes. Was it her beauty that captivated him? Suddenly, a thought sparked within her. She needed to capture his attention, to aggro him. As she playfully put it, using gamer terminology, under his shimmering, rainy sky, the pink-haired woman beamed, a hopeful sparkle in her eyes as she faced the dark-clothed figure. A weighty silence descended as the figure turned away, a quiet refusal hanging in the air. A rosy-haired girl, her expression a mix of surprise and amusement, touched a strand of her hair, a soft wet, escaping her lips. The dark-haired man, elegant in his formal attire, hesitantly offered to teach the pink-haired lady in the flowing gown how to dance. His words laced with a nervous tremor. Her response was swift and curt, a quiet refusal that hung in the air, leaving him looking slightly taken aback. With a gloved hand ghosting his jawline, the dark-haired man, adorned with a striking pink gemstone brooch, was challenged for his inexplicable refusal. He calmly, almost dismissively, explained that the reason for his declination was simply due to the sheer inconvenience of it all. A dark-haired man in elegant attire, clutching a necklace, seemed to hold his breath as he faced a woman with vibrant pink hair adorned with a large bow, her expression unreadable. A gloved hand, clenched in a fist radiating irritation, jabbed accusingly at the elaborately dressed man's chest as a voice reminded him of his earlier inquisitiveness. His expression shifted from mild surprise to a simmering annoyance, as he retorted that his curiosity had been utterly eclipsed by a wave of vexation. The dark-haired man, dressed in a sharp, formal attire, paused in the rain, his gaze distant and pensive as he quietly requested permission to return home. He suggested their future conversations could be through letters. She, adorned in a long, ruffled gown and pink hair, retorted with a hint of exasperation that even letters were bothersome, proposing they simply cease communicating altogether. The dark-haired man, adorned in a finely detailed uniform with a striking pink gemstone brooch, realized with a flicker of intrigue in his otherwise bored eyes that his adversary was proving a more formidable challenge than anticipated. The dark-haired man, elegantly dressed, subtly urged the pink-haired lady to enjoy the ball since she'd already come so far. Clasping her hands together, the lady in the ornate gown confessed her introverted nature. With a cool air of finality, the dark-suited figure turned his back on the distraught pink-haired woman and offered a curt, chilling farewell. A gloved hand grasped dark fabric, pulling it aside with a dramatic flourish. A startled voice cried out, desperately urging the Duke to pause. A dark-haired man, adorned in a richly decorated black garment, paused, his gaze distant and contemplative. A silent exclamation hanging in the air. The pink-haired woman in an elaborate gown gasped, her eyes widening in alarm as she whispered, Eve, adorned in a beautiful gown and elegant gloves, longed to twirl across the dance floor. A slight blush tinged her cheeks as she realized a crucial detail was missing, a partner to share the dance with. A sharp crack echoed as something unseen shattered. The dark-haired man's face masked while the pink-haired woman beside him seemed startled, a small object clutched in her hand. The pink-haired woman's face contorted in a mixture of shock and horror, a silent gasp escaping her lips. Panic radiated from her as she realized her mistake, muttering to herself that she'd gone too far. Regret washed over her, the weight of her actions settling in as she feared the consequences. The dark-haired man, adorned in a finely tailored suit and a jeweled cravat, leaned in, his voice a low murmur. questioning if a single song would truly suffice for the pink-haired woman beside him. Her delicate gown and floral adornments hinting at a special occasion, a vision in a delicate, lacy gown. The pink-haired woman's curious smile faltered as a baffling revelation struck her. A soft what? Escaping her lips, accompanied by a cascade of question marks swirling above her head. With a hint of challenge in his gaze, the dark-haired man, adorned in a richly embellished suit and white gloves, questioned if a single song would truly suffice. The pink-haired woman, adorned in a delicate white dress, stared in wide-eyed wonder, a single bead of sweat tracing a path down her cheek. A wave of disbelief washed over her as she whispered, astounded, questioning if what she witnessed had truly transpired. With a knowing smile, the pink-haired woman leaned closer, her words a gentle warning about the treacherous floor, as she held onto the dark-haired person beside her. He gazed at her, a hint of apology in his eyes, questioning if his dancing had been truly awful. Confessing his lack of dancing prowess, he revealed a deeper motive, a burning desire to know her better, his words hanging heavy with unspoken meaning. A rosy-haired woman, elegantly dressed, fidgeted with her gloved hands, a soft gasp escaping her lips and a surprised "oh my goodness," whispered, with a subtle, knowing smile playing on her lips. She mused aloud, questioning if her companion had previously held a less than favorable opinion of her. He swept the rosy-haired beauty into his arms, a tender yet slightly awkward dip highlighting the undeniable affection in his gaze as she held on with a sparkling, trusting smile, oblivious to the stunned observer nearby, who couldn't contain their incredulous whisper of adoration. With a slash and a finger pressed to their lips, one character silenced the other, their expression a mix of playful dominance and barely contained excitement. They insisted their companion listen closely, promising to reveal all about themselves and the art of dance. With a final flourish, they vowed to teach everything from A to Z, their voice dripping with a suggestive darling. The lady with the flowing pink hair observed the dark-clad man, a hint of disappointment in her expression as she mused that this wasn't quite what she'd envisioned. Panic erupted in the ballroom as onlookers, their fine clothes swirling around them, scrambled away in sudden alarm. A woman in a ruffled blue gown urgently hushed a crying child, her voice tight with a desperate plea for silence amidst a grand, yet tense, backdrop. Amidst the swirling colors and hushed whispers of a grand ballroom, the pink-haired lady addressed the dark-clad gentleman, her hand fluttering to her chest as if holding back a torrent of unspoken emotions. The pink-haired woman in the elegant white gown fought back tears, a desperate urge to flee flickering in her eyes. Amidst a formal event, a conductor struggled to maintain composure as the music abruptly ceased, leaving the orchestra in stunned silence, and posing a daunting challenge to those on the dance floor. With a steely glint in her eye, the pink-haired woman affirmed her resolve with a resounding yes. With a surge of determination, she rallied her spirits, her resolve echoing in the rustle of her elaborate gown. He gazed down at her, a flicker of possessiveness in his eyes, realizing his feelings were evolving from mere attraction into a burning need to conquer her heart. Amidst the grandeur of the ballroom, a curious observer questioned Lady Mebia's choice of dance partner. However, the grace and beauty of her movements captivated the onlooker, leaving them in awe of her mesmerizing performance. Amidst a flurry of dark, swirling energy, the man, eyes blazing with an unsettling intensity, held the pink-haired woman close, their hands clasped together in a dance that felt more like a capture. A gasp rippled through the elegant gathering as a woman in a teal gown, clutching a microphone, stared in wide-eyed horror at something unfolding behind her. A man beside her, mirroring her shock while another guest fled. The dark-haired man whirled the pink-haired lady in a graceful dance, their elegant attire swirling around them amidst a flurry of flower petals. Lost in the moment, she tilted her head back, a serene smile gracing her lips as she followed his lead with blissful abandon. Swept into a graceful dance, the pink-haired lady moved with unexpected expertise, leaving her dark-haired partner in stunned disbelief. He marveled inwardly at her hidden talent, questioning how someone supposedly unfamiliar with social gatherings could possess such refined skills despite never having learned something. The elegantly dressed man was relieved it didn't appear out of place. With a sly smile and a hint of mischief in her eyes, the pink-haired beauty subtly boasted about her seemingly effortless talent. A couple danced gracefully in a grand ballroom, their movements observed by onlookers. One observer murmured an ambiguous comment, hinting at some hidden meaning. A hearty laugh echoed through the opulent space, seemingly in response to the dancing couple or perhaps the cryptic remark. A pink-haired woman in a delicate gown, a knowing smirk playing on her lips, realized her suspicions were correct. With a hint of challenge in the air, someone dared to question the dark-haired man, implying his reputation for difficulty was exaggerated. He adorned in a finely detailed dark suit with a striking pink jeweled accessory, regarded the speaker with a cool, appraising gaze. A subtle flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. He seemed to pause, intrigued by her fearless demeanor. The pink-haired woman, adorned in elegant finery, smiled knowingly, clearly not intimidated by him. Her bold display of interest fascinated him, perhaps pondering a thought. A dark-haired man held a pink-haired woman, clad in a flowing gown, as if in a dance or an embrace. Against a shadowy backdrop, a cloaked figure watched from below, their face hidden, as a purple light enveloped the couple above. Suspicion laced the air as the cloaked observer realized this alluring scene was nothing but a deceitful ploy. Hesitantly, a word hung in the air, but the elegantly dressed woman looked up at the man standing before her as he softly spoke her name. Mebia. Her quiet yes hinted at a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. With an air of mystery, one figure addressed the other, their words laced with intrigue. Whatever your aim is, I don't know. With a sly, knowing smile, the dark-haired man in the ornate uniform clasped someone's hand, silently vowing to play along with their charade for now. Distressed, the pink-haired woman touched her face, a whisper of confusion escaping her lips. Sinking deeper into the bath, her bewilderment grew, transforming into a frustrated exclamation. With a sly smirk, the dark-haired man clasped the pink-haired woman's hand, accepting her unspoken challenge with a promise to play along with her game, whatever it may be. A flush crept up the pink-haired woman's cheeks as she was asked a life-altering question, a proposal of marriage. One hand, clad in white, reached out hesitantly, almost brushing the others, as if testing the waters of an unspoken question. With a veiled hint of mischief, the pink-haired woman in a white gown subtly touched her gloved hand to her chest, suggesting they postpone their intriguing conversation until a later time. A shimmering, almost ethereal rain cascaded around the dark-clad man, his hands clasped before him as he faced the woman with rosy hair and a gown of intricate lace, both seemingly caught in a moment of silent, bewildered wonder. Beneath a cascade of shimmering light, a dark-haired man, his expression a blend of intrigue and something akin to possessiveness, clutched a jeweled ornament near his heart, a silent promise hanging in the rain-filled air. So, for a moment, the pink-haired lady in an elaborate gown stood facing a mysteriously absent figure, a tangible tension filling the grand hall. A hushed whisper, tinged with both concern and confusion, broke the silence. Your Grace clutching a teddy bear. The pink-haired girl fumed over someone's sudden disappearance. A dark thought crossed her mind. She would make him regret it when he finally reappeared. A plush, cat-like creature nestled amongst soft, luxurious fabrics. Anxiously wondered if their weight would truly stretch on for a decade. Frustrated and dismissing whatever had been bothering them, the character dove into bed, determined to sleep for at least 20 hours before facing their problems. The rosy-haired girl slept soundly, her arms wrapped around a worn teddy bear, a peaceful expression gracing her features. With a mocking laugh, someone clearly enjoying her misery, the silver-haired girl with a brown headscarf felt her tormentor's gaze burning into her. Darkness fell, swallowed by the immense task before her. Forced to scrub the floor, the girl, demeaned as Cinderella, continued her thankless chore under the sharp command to work harder. With a sly grin and a pointed finger, the pink-haired noblewoman issued a playful, yet menacing ultimatum, involving a rather unappetizing dinner of potatoes stir-fried. A young man, his face flushed, breathed a single, urgent word, mother. Flushed and seemingly exasperated, the silver-haired servant pleaded for any chore other than peeling potatoes. The pink-haired girl gagged, her eyes wide with disgust and shock. A wave of nausea overcame her. A worried maid holding a cloth questioned the pink-haired lady slumped over a basin about how much she'd imbibed. But the lady weakly insisted her distress wasn't alcohol-related. A maid, her face etched with concern, offered a wet towel, suggesting they clean up before the Grand Duke arrived. Panicked, she wondered aloud if she should delay his visit. A silent question mark hung in the air, emphasizing her uncertainty and the urgency of the situation. Under a twilight sky, a grand estate awaited its guest, Duke Colacus, who was patiently waiting within the reception room. With arms crossed and a look of cool indifference, the dark-haired man in the ornate suit sat amidst the opulent furnishings, a silent challenge in his steely gaze. Confused, the pink-haired girl rubbed her eyes, a slight blush creeping onto her cheeks as she questioned the situation. The pink-haired girl politely suggested a later meeting unless the matter was pressing, only to be met with a tense silence from the dark-haired young man, seated across the elegant tea table. Puzzled by his unexpected appearance so early after his abrupt departure the previous day, she wondered what urgent business brought him back at dawn. Overcome with exhaustion, the pink-haired girl stifled a yawn, her eyes fluttering closed. The dark-haired man, adorned in a sharp suit with a sapphire brooch, uttered the name Edis with a serious expression. The pink-haired girl, eyes wide with surprise, blurted a confused pardon. The dark-haired young man, a touch of coolness in his gaze, instructed her to call him Edis and speak casually. The pink-haired woman dismissed an idea with a knowing smirk, her expression suggesting it was far too simple. A subtle smile played on her lips as she confessed her tendency towards bluntness, implying a need for careful phrasing to soften her words. With a subtle, almost sly smile, the dark-haired man in elegant attire made a decisive gesture, accepting the inevitable. With a snap of his fingers, a subtle spark ignited, hinting at something more than meets the eye. The pink-haired woman gasped in surprise as a magic circle suddenly materialized around her. A chilling thought struck her. If he eliminates his intended, wouldn't that violate their contract? Her eyes widened with realization. It was a loophole. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, a silent testament to her inner turmoil. A desperate cry echoed, shattering the tense silence. Wait a moment. A parchment, adorned with elegant script and encircled by a glowing, arcane circle, shimmered with an otherworldly light. A surprised gasp escaped someone as they noticed something unexpected within the document. The pink-haired woman, dressed in a pale blue gown, examined a torn piece of parchment with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, murmuring this is as if she'd stumbled upon a crucial clue. Despite any lingering drowsiness, the dark-haired man in the ornate suit insisted on discussing the crucial details of the impending marriage. A weathered marriage registration form, bearing the emperor's seal, hinted at a union from a bygone era. Someone pondered aloud, recalling a certain individual's supposed laziness, now contrasted with the unexpected tenderness in his words. A shadowy figure mused that the way another spoke felt less like a nickname and more like a soothing murmur. To a pet, he held a small white cat, its blue eyes mirroring the cool gemstone on his tie. A question hanging in the air about the speaker's transcendent nature. Accusatory. One questioned the other about their mysterious disappearance the day before. The accused, sharp and composed, sat opposite, their silence heavy with unspoken answers. A warning hung in the air, demanding prior notice of any future absences. The threat of consequences lingering ominously. A woman with rosy hair playfully touched her lips, hinting at a hidden sharpness in her words. Intrigued, the dark-haired man beside her, seemingly her husband, listened with an amused smirk, a silent tension sparking between them. He responded with subtle mockery, indicating his willingness to indulge her, whatever she might have in store. Quiet thank you hung in the air. The man in the ornate jacket, hands clasped thoughtfully, was addressed as Eve. He responded with a simple, inquiring yes. The dark-haired man, elegant in his formal attire and a striking blue gemstone at his throat, declared he had no intention of marrying with divorce in mind. The pink-haired woman, a subtle smirk playing on her lips, retorted that she didn't plan on divorcing either. Her expression turned slightly sharper as she added a condition: as long as he didn't give her a headache. Someone questioned another's decision to commit to a lifelong partnership with a man they'd met just the day before. The idea of a political marriage where affection isn't a prerequisite was offered as a reassuring example. The possibility of children was raised as a potential challenge. The dark-haired man, dressed in formal attire and a jeweled cravat pin, calmly stated this was simply his nature. The pink-haired lady, sipping delicately from an ornate teacup, assures someone she'll keep their words in mind, while privately reflecting on her lack of maternal aspiration. One offered another more questions, while delicately swirling a teacup. Intrigued, the other pondered a moment before inquiring about the tea drinker's age. A mysterious figure hinted at their age, before dropping a bombshell about a past encounter with the very first head of the Colossus family. Before his ascension, a naive young man with an impassive expression wandered through treacherous, snowy landscapes. He overlooked a kneeling figure, seemingly lost in the vast, cold wilderness. A small, pink-haired observer, captivated by the scene, marveled at the youthfulness of the standing man. Someone implied the elegantly dressed, pink-haired woman was old enough to have great-grandchildren. She calmly clarified that she had never had any biological children. Pressed further about having a lover, the woman curtly denied that as well. The pink-haired girl, with a curious glint in her eyes, questioned the formally dressed boy if he perhaps harbored a secret affection for someone. His expression shifted, a subtle blend of disappointment and defensiveness, as he admitted he had no such secret love. Leaning back in a grand, ornate chair, the pink-haired figure posed a cryptic question about their own longevity, implying there was more to their story than met the eye. A dark-haired man, adorned in a richly embroidered jacket and a striking blue pendant, pondered the weighty revelation of meeting the first head of Colossus. A challenging question hung in the air, probing whether he grasped the profound implications of such an encounter. A mysterious woman with long, flowing pink hair gave a simple, yet intriguing affirmation. I do. The other person, whose face is not visible, expresses a keen interest in her romantic entanglements, shifting the focus of the conversation towards a more personal territory. The pink-haired woman, radiating an almost mischievous glee, practically vibrates with excitement at the question, clearly anticipating the ensuing gossip. A rosy-haired girl adorned in a delicate dress, playfully mused about asking for the secret to a long life sometime in the distant future. A beat later, she confessed, with a mischievous glint in her eye, that she wouldn't mind knowing the secret to eternal youth right now. Then, an afterthought struck her, and with a touch of filial piety, she added that she'd love to share the longevity secret with her parents too. A close-up revealed the man's intense gaze, his silence heavy with unspoken words. He finally broke the silence, offering a cryptic promise to share something only if he felt inclined. With a touch of his chin and a glint in his eye, he challenged the unseen questioner, his tone suggesting finality. With a finality in their voice, one party declared their request finished, but not without a crucial, intriguing condition, leaving the other party curious and slightly apprehensive, confiding in Edith, her loyal maid, a young woman prepared to settle in a strange new land, alone in a desolate place. She felt the chilling absence of family and friends. The thought occurred to her that her new territory might be even colder and more barren than her current surroundings. A cloaked figure gently supported another, smaller figure with vibrant pink hair as they trudged through a snowy, grand courtyard. Someone reassured them that the situation wasn't so dire, and they wouldn't be left alone to face it. A flutter of worry crossed the pink-haired girl's face as she considered the dangers of her journey. Enemies and magical beasts alike. Across a table laden with unspoken tension, the pink-haired woman offered a proposition, her words laced with a subtle challenge as she inquired about his desired terms. He, the dark-haired man with an elaborate cravat, appeared aloof yet intrigued, causing her to inwardly celebrate her triumph. The dark-haired man, adorned with a striking blue gemstone brooch, reacted to the mentioned price of 1,000,000 marca for bruises with a sharp, silent question in his eyes. A price list of injuries hung in the air, starting with stab wounds for a mere 1,000,000 marca. The dark-haired man, possibly a nobleman judging by his attire, presented the escalating cost to the pink-haired woman seated across from him, the price jumping drastically to 50,000,000 for burns. The chilling menu concluded with the exorbitant cost of fractures and amputations, a staggering sum ranging from 100 to 200,000,000 marca, suggesting a grim business transaction was underway. A hand, delicate and manicured, presented a document casually mentioning death as a complimentary service. The pink-haired woman, seated regally, beamed as she held out the newly amended contract, inquiring brightly about its suitability. A hand, adorned with the finery of ornate clothing, clenched tightly, a barely audible sigh escaping the figure. A darkly handsome man, adorned in a richly embroidered jacket and a sapphire tie pin, leaned back, a predatory glint in his eyes as he posed a chilling question about the extent of his domain. Acknowledging the apparent absurdity, the pink-haired Duchess questioned what dangers could possibly befall her within the safety of her own duchy. Her dark-haired visitor, seated across a small, elegant table, simply countered with a sharp, demanding then why. A haughty duchess declared she was unlike others of her rank, intent on filling a long vacant position of power. The scene shifted to a lavish, crimson-hued office, where the unspoken threat of opposition to her rise hung heavy in the air. With a defiant glint, she challenged the unseen listener, questioning whether she seemed like one to passively observe the unfolding drama. With a sly smile, the pink-haired woman in the elegant gown suggested thinking of something as a mere safety measure. She confidently declared her preparedness for any eventuality, a glint of calculation in her eyes. A sly smile played on the pink-haired woman's lips as she revealed a hidden motive, her words suggesting a deeper, more clandestine truth lay beneath. The surface. Bound to a carriage, a silver-haired man struggled against the ropes, his face a mask of grim determination as he thought about the perilous journey north and the challenges awaiting him there. He realized his isolation in the north would be starkly contrasted by Gilbert Colacus' established influence, making his fight even more precarious. Doubt nodded him, acknowledging that even underhanded tactics might not guarantee victory. In this power struggle, braced for impact, the delicate lady in a flowing gown stood amidst a group of intimidating men, seemingly prepared to strike. Calculating the potential damage, she mused that any blow received after delivering a flurry of her own should, at the very least, be compensated financially. Pleased with this idea, she leaned back, a cunning glint in her eye as stacks of gold coins materialized in someone else's hands, a reward for her anticipated suffering. With a hint of condescension, The dark-haired nobleman, adorned with a jeweled brooch, suggested a guard for his seemingly frightened companion, even offering to permit an entire private army if necessary. She questioned the need for extra help. Boasting about her impressive husband, he countered with a skeptical observation, implying she didn't seem to trust her supposedly remarkable spouse. She reminded him of the recency of their acquaintance, hinting at the premature nature of his judgment. He, dark-haired and impeccably dressed, observed her with a hint of amusement, finding her more endearing than intimidating. With a playful wink and bunny ears adorning her pink hair, she radiated a bubbly energy. He mused to himself, a mischievous glint in his eyes, at the sweet, bunny-like demeanor was precisely what he desired in a wife. A delicate hand hovered over the contract, urged to sign first with a promise of reciprocation. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise in their depths. A confused huh escaped her lips as the dark-haired man in formal attire looked at her. Edith's name, called out sharply, caused the pink-haired woman to turn abruptly, her elegant gown swirling around her in a moment of stunned silence. A question mark hung heavy in the air, unspoken but clearly reflected in the wide-eyed confusion on her face. With a touch to his face, someone noted the subtle violet hue hidden within the dark-haired man's eyes, a detail he seemed unaware of. With a dream-like whisper of like a deep blue ocean, the pink-haired woman leaned in, a gentle touch to the man's face, her gaze holding a mysterious intensity. The captivated man, still and composed in his ornate chair, seemed to absorb her words, a violet star twinkling within his eyes, reflecting her enigmatic charm. He brushed a hand over his eye, a flicker of annoyance crossing his features as he dismissed something as utter nonsense. The pink-haired woman, a mischievous glint in her eyes, mused on the man's apparent embarrassment, finding his flustered state endearing. She expressed relief at getting to know him better before their impending wedding. He confessed that the imbalance of knowledge between them had felt unfair. A contented sigh escaped her lips as she mused that things felt a little more balanced now. A provocative question hung in the air. Aren't you afraid? The retort came sharp and challenging, questioning whether the fear concerned territory or perhaps a looming marriage. The final answer landed with a quiet intensity, a whispered confession. I meant me. The pink-haired girl, with a thoughtful expression, pondered the statement that beautiful people weren't frightening, tilting her head slightly as if questioning the very notion. With a subtle flick of the letter opener he held, the dark-haired man in the ornate suit confirmed that his previously stated terms were final. His expression a mask of cool indifference. With a quiet but firm I accept, a decision was made, sealing an unknown fate. A sharp intake of breath hinted at the weight of the agreement. The elegant jeweled brooch at his throat shimmering in the soft light. Across a small, elegant table, the pink-haired woman offered something to the dark-suited man, who accepted, with a quiet okay as his turn began. With a sense of finality, a character, their white clothing just visible at the edge of the frame, signed a momentous document. The act punctuated by a crackling sound effect and a sense of burning urgency. Amidst swirling embers, a declaration of real magic hung in the air. The pink-haired girl, seated gracefully in an ornate chair, observed the magical display with wide eyes, a mixture of awe and disbelief washing over her as she realized the reality of what she witnessed. A pink-haired girl, her expression sharp with curiosity, pondered the nature of the person behind a certain contract. A dark-haired man with a mischievous glint in his eye offered to reveal the location of a grave to the rosy-cheeked, pink-haired woman beside him, who seemed both amused and slightly unnerved. Feigning polite disinterest, she declined his offer despite her obvious curiosity. He responded with a knowing smirk, convinced she wouldn't be able to resist the temptation for long. With a sense of finality, a long-held family promise was fulfilled. Shattering like glass into the air, the speaker, now Mavia Kalakis, embraced her new identity. With a veiled tone, one character expressed anticipation for cohabitating with the pink-haired Grand Duchess. With a flicker of surprise in her rose-tinted eyes, the woman realized Edith's prophecy had come true. She was now the Grand Duchess of Kalakis. A dark-haired man in an elaborate, almost sinister uniform, clasped his hands, a cryptic blue gem gleaming at his throat, and mused with a touch of irony that his new ducal house felt suspiciously like the Demon King's army. With a dreamy sigh and a blush dusting her cheeks, the pink-haired girl conceded that his looks were a definite plus. He, sharply dressed and seemingly oblivious, tilted his head in question at her sudden, love-struck silence. The topic of the demon realm hung in the air, quickly dismissed by a seemingly casual, yet pointed inquiry about returning to the estate, delivered with a subtle, knowing smile as the pink-haired lady elegantly sipped her tea. He assured her he was at her beck and call. With playful curiosity, she wondered aloud if he would grant her wish to leave immediately. He responded with a fond, almost exasperated, How could I refuse? With a playful smirk, the pink-haired woman sipped her tea, dismissing a previous remark as a mere jest. A flicker of wistful contemplation crossed her features as she realized the need to bid farewell to her parents before embarking on an unknown journey. Over tea, the pink-haired woman was given a cryptic warning by the dark-haired man, hinting at farewells beyond just her parents. From beyond a closed door, a voice, presumably Sierra's, announced their presence, prompting a gentle come in from within. Maid apologized for interrupting the man and his pink-haired guest, explaining that Lady Elaine had sent an urgent letter. The man, surprised by the early morning delivery, questioned the timing. A tense silence hung in the air as the pink-haired woman faced a man, their conversation seemingly revolving around a significant past event. Suddenly, a distraught woman, with long, auburn hair interjected, her shocked expression betraying a hidden infatuation with someone named Gilbert. It became apparent that her affections lay elsewhere, far from the Grand Duke who was likely the focus of the previous interaction. With a sharp, decisive slice, a sealed letter was opened, the action punctuated by the thought that someone must be wondering about the deep-seated hatred simmering beneath the surface, enough to elicit such a venomous epithet as that bastard for Gilbert. Monica Elaine penned a letter, disguised as a polite invitation, yet laced with a thinly veiled demand for information about a recent incident. The pink-haired recipient, holding the letter, felt a wave of exasperation at its audacious tone. Her suspicion confirmed, her thoughts echoed the underlying message exactly as she had predicted. A stern-faced man in elegant dark attire, adorned with a striking blue jewel, was asked about the urgency of a matter. He was told it wasn't pressing. A woman simply wished to deliver a birthday invitation, prompting a relaxed thought that a delayed response was perfectly acceptable. A hesitant voice urged a lady to hurry. Confused, the pink-haired lady questioned the sudden request. The maid, holding what appeared to be a letter, began to explain the messenger's words. News arrived that Lady Elaine had departed her mansion, letter in hand. Inside her speeding carriage, the fiery-haired noblewoman urged her driver to greater haste. Her loyal horseman, spurred by her command, pushed his mount to its limits, the horse's breath misting in the air. The pink-haired lady reclined on a chaise lounge, dramatically clutching her head, while her maid attended to her, seemingly perplexed by her mistress's contradictory behavior. The dark-haired young man offered the pink-haired girl a hiding place. She cheerfully refused, realizing it was the Grand Duke's residence, specifically wanting to avoid an encounter with the Duke's first son, if that was the reason. The sharply dressed man offered a chilling solution, his voice low and laced with a dangerous undercurrent. He clasped his hands together, a subtle gesture that betrayed the intensity of his proposal. The pink-haired girl, her face alight with an amused smile, reassured someone with a gentle "it's all right." She hinted, with a playful lilt in her voice, that she suspected the other person's methods of taking care of things were rather otherworldly. With a sly smile and half-closed eyes, the dark-haired man in elegant attire mused aloud, questioning whether the location truly mattered as long as the deed was done. Across a small, elegant table, a dark-haired man offered his support to a woman with delicate pink hair, assuring her he was there if she ever needed anything. She politely declined for the moment, her soft sigh hinting at a hidden complexity. With a sigh and a touch to her hair, the pink-haired woman in a delicate gown, Edith, listened as her companion suggested they move their conversation to a more private salon. He subtly hinted that their current location was too exposed and they might be interrupted. With a curt "very well, let's go right away," one hand, adorned with an intricately embroidered sleeve, rested firmly on a table, the other following suit. With a decisive thud, a dark-haired man, impeccably dressed, mused aloud, a playful glint in his eyes, about how he was curious to see what the pink-haired individual's day clothes looked like. After catching a glimpse of their charming sleepwear, the pink-haired figure, partially obscured from view, responded with a soft, confused "huh." The lady with pink hair, dressed in a flowing gown, touched her head and questioned her attire, her gaze fixed on the sharply dressed man before her, while a maid stood by, holding a tray. The pink-haired girl in the nightgown gasped, bringing a hand to her head as a sudden realization struck her. She lamented that she had been in her pajamas this whole time, a mix of embarrassment and chagrin coloring her features. With a flustered urgency, the pink-haired girl, peeking from behind a curtain, called out to Sierra, demanding her help to get ready and leave quickly. From below, the maid, her face a mix of surprise and slight exasperation, agreed with a hesitant yes. Someone was captivated by an unparalleled beauty, a vision they'd never encountered before. Her very presence seemed to possess an ethereal quality, a noble aura that commanded the atmosphere itself. The mere thought of her ascending to the position of Grand Duchess sparked a warmth, a belief that even the frostiest landscapes could thaw. She was envisioned as a radiant goddess of spring, her presence promising renewal and a vibrant bloom. Surrounded by fluttering butterflies and blooming flowers, the pink-haired lady, adorned in a flowing gown and a delicate floral crown, exuded an ethereal beauty, prompting an unseen admirer to declare her perfection. Someone seethed with indignation, questioning how a lowly young master dared to challenge such a powerful figure. A gloved hand reached out towards a prone figure on an ornate bed, the gesture heavy with unspoken intent. Startled, the figure on the bed gasped in disbelief. Anxiety filled the air as two figures, seated at a small table, discussed the fate of a marriage proposal. Sprawled dramatically across a nearby bed, a despondent figure in dark clothing suggested the proposal hadn't gone well. One worriedly speculated that a recent incident had caused the intended bride to reject the Grand Ducal family. It appeared their lord had left abruptly that morning in a desperate attempt to salvage the situation and win back his beloved. The first young master was pulled away, leaving Her Highness to dance with the mysterious lord, barred from the ballroom. The narrator could only glean from the muffled sounds that the atmosphere within was absolute pandemonium. Amidst the swirling chaos of the ballroom, the pink-haired lady, her expression a mixture of surprise and perhaps fear, found herself swept into a dance by the dark, horned figure. The dark-haired man, his face contorted in disbelief, grappled with the shocking revelation of someone dancing with the Lord. He lamented the involvement of a delicate, flower-like beauty with the ominous Calacus. The unseen speaker mused whether a marriage to the second young master wouldn't have been a more suitable match. In a grand, opulent room, two figures, one with vibrant green hair and the other with darker locks and a sword at his side, sat discussing the controversial union. Outrage simmered as the age gap, a staggering century between the young bride and His Highness, became the focus of their incredulous conversation. Though both parties were adults, a worried observer fretted over the situation, deeply concerned. They wondered if such a seemingly innocent and delicate person could handle the implications of what was happening. The green-haired individual, lost in thought and resting their chin on a hand, looked troubled and uncertain, with a subtle, disbelieving smirk playing on his lips. The elegantly dressed man dismissed the information he'd just received as utter nonsense. The silver-haired nobleman, adorned in a richly embroidered vest, leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips as he scoffed at the very idea of someone being delicate and innocent, the absurdity of it almost forcing a laugh from him. A silver-haired man, adorned in opulent attire, leaned in with a sly smirk, insinuatingly questioning someone's curiosity about a certain woman. He then offered to reveal the true nature hidden beneath the new Grand Duchess's facade, promising a detailed expose of her secrets. He trailed off, a tense silence hanging heavy in the air. The green-haired youth inquired impatiently about their return to their homeland. Startled by the question, the elegantly dressed man with silver hair bristled, demanding to know what nonsense the other was spouting. Growing increasingly frustrated, the silver-haired man erupted, accusing the other of deliberately ignoring him. Urgency hung in the air as one man insisted they prepare for an imminent departure. Unsure of when their lord would leave, the green-haired man, thoughtful and seemingly troubled, raised a finger as if struck by a sudden thought. Then a question of concern arose, their conversation shifting towards the first young master and their uncertain next steps. Regarding him, someone was to be bundled up and discreetly hidden away, lest their presence offend a lord and his lady. A more audacious suggestion followed: tie him to the back of the carriage, where he'd likely go unnoticed. A hand, adorned with ornate sleeve, rose in a gesture of pause, demanding a moment of stillness. The green-haired man questioned the other's sudden request. The silver-haired man, with a slightly raised hand, explained his desire to bid farewell to a dear friend before their imminent departure. Disbelief filled the air, as someone questioned the very possibility of the first young master having friends. Given his reputation for mistreating his younger brother, the green-haired young man, seemingly the subject of the gossip, clasped his hands together with a sly, delighted smirk. Clearly amused by the incredulous whispers, he mused aloud, wondering if the trash's supposed friends would dare to associate with him openly. With a cruel smirk, the silver-haired man, dressed in finery, taunted his unseen opponent, comparing them to a blindly loyal dog who had failed to recognize its true master. A sharp warning hung in the air, advising someone to watch their words. The speaker clarified that their true allegiance lay with the Grand Duke, not the young master they addressed. Tension crackled as the silver-haired man, back to the others, was curtly instructed to sit down and behave. With a mocking laugh, a voice echoed through the dimly lit chamber, implying the silver-haired man, standing confidently amidst a glowing, arcane circle, hadn't quite grasped the severity of the situation and needed to be taught a lesson. To figures, swords drawn, prepared for a confrontation against elite knights, a command echoing between them to attack without hesitation. Once a certain summoning concluded, the taller, dark-haired warrior was cautioned by his green-haired companion about the repercussions of causing trouble. While on probation, he grimly accepted the possibility of injury, resolving that victory was still within reach. A troubled thought flickered across their mind. If their father discovered this, escaping consequences wouldn't be easy, but a surge of defiance quickly followed. They couldn't simply let those who dared to disregard them walk away. A silver-haired man, adorned in elaborate attire and a jeweled insignia, wielded a magnificent sword amidst a fiery backdrop, a sinister smile playing on his lips as he warned his unseen adversaries that they had brought this fate upon themselves and should harbor no regrets. A blood-soaked hand gripped a menacing, ornate weapon, a chilling promise of death echoing in the air. A squelching sound punctuated the tense silence, raising an unsettling question mark over the scene. Disgusted, one character questioned the choice of friend another had called upon for help. Apparently, this newcomer was part of a familiar, unsavory crowd. Judging by the knowing sigh of the questioner, the newcomer, aghast, stammered about his sword, a crimson streak staining its surface. As to other men reacted with shock and covered their noses with a frustrated growl. A gleaming, ornate sword clattered to the ground, consumed by rage. Gilbert Cowlockus slammed his fist into the ground, his voice a furious roar as he condemned those who dared to underestimate him. The dark-haired man, clad in a fitted jacket and gloves, covered his nose, seemingly disgusted by a strong odor, while a green-haired companion beside him echoed the sentiment with a worried look. A figure with silver hair slumped forward in the foreground, the source of the unsettling scent still a mystery. A pregnant silence filled the room. A dark-haired man, clad in a gray tunic with shoulder armor, paused with a gloved hand to his mouth, a question hanging in the air about whether the person before him was a close friend of Baron Callan Turner. The other person, partially hidden from view, their silver hair visible beneath a dark hat and elaborate collar, quietly confirmed with a hesitant yes, that's right. He offered to relay the message, urging calm, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes as he wondered if the recipient would actually appear given the circumstances. The silver-haired nobleman, adorned with an elaborate jeweled cross, turned his head slightly, a flicker of annoyance in his crimson eyes, as a voice from above suggested he should have acted differently from the beginning. In an opulent room, a silver-haired man leaned against a dresser, seemingly lost in thought as another, clad in armor, approached, prompted by a call to Procyon. The armored figure turned, acknowledging the command with a respectful yes, sir, while a third man with green hair and carrying a sword stood nearby. With a deafening clang, an ornate lock, bound by heavy chains, was ripped from its place, revealing the way beyond. The green-haired young man, fiddling with a set of keys, questioned the stoic, dark-haired figure beside him about contacting a dubious acquaintance. A shadow of doubt crossed the darker man's face as he worried aloud about the potential consequences of involving their troublesome friend again. A dark-haired, formally dressed man listened with a grim expression as he was informed of a certain lord's presence in the capital. His gaze hardened, and a threatening aura emanated from him as he contemplated the potential repercussions should the lord dare to stir up more trouble, knowing the price he would pay for his recklessness. Another man, sweating and visibly distressed, seemed to shrink under the weight of his companion's words, dreading the potential consequences. Reminded of their return to the estate, the silver-haired man resolved to remain inconspicuous and silent. He decided to remain silent, especially considering the Grand Duke's presence in the capital. With a sly glint in his eye and a beckoning gesture, the silver-haired nobleman declared that he had a special task in mind for his closest confidant, flatly refusing any involvement with the formidable Lady Maybe. The man nervously emphasized his desire for self-preservation. Taken aback, the other man questioned who would dare ask him to act against such a woman. A dawning realization crept across the first man's face, his expression shifting to one of uncertainty. Consumed by a venomous jealousy, she fixated on the brown-haired maid, a constant presence in her rival's life. A sinister plot began to brew in her mind, fueled by a desperate need to inflict pain and reclaim some semblance of control. A nobleman, clad in ornate attire, turned his back, feigning ignorance of a whispered remark, while another, perhaps his confidant, observed his departure with a knowing look, aware of the fierce loyalty simmering beneath the noble's seemingly indifferent facade. Observing the man consumed by fury, the onlooker deemed him a crazy bastard, realizing his rage blinded him to the true nature of the situation and concluding it was time to change allegiances. The silver-haired nobleman, arms crossed, listened impassively as the other, adorned in a dark suit with gold embellishments, abruptly rose from the table, clearly agitated about the Northern Business Partnership and rumors of complaints regarding profit distribution. Outraged, the richly dressed man demanded to know if he was being threatened. His voice laced with indignation, gratitude mingled with self-reproach hung in the air as one figure acknowledged the other's significant help, yet admitted their failure to reciprocate the care. A tense silence descended, broken only by the subtle shift of feet on the polished floor, before a stunned whisper questioned the other's sanity. A subtly menacing chuckle escaped the elegantly dressed figure, their fingers clenching as a dark thought crossed their mind. If only this irritating gloom would lift, perhaps a veneer of generosity could be donned. He mused on the remarkable generosity, sharing even small business profits with a dear friend without hesitation. The brown-haired man's profile, adorned with a jeweled pin, showed a thoughtful expression as a hand, presumably belonging to the silver-haired individual beside him, rested lightly on his shoulder. The narrator emphasized the sheer magnanimity of the gesture, repeating the sentiment with added intensity. In a dimly lit, violet-hued room, one man, gripping the other's lapel, issued a final ultimatum to Callan, with a barbed wire halo framing the question. He pressed Callan for a decisive answer to his crucial request. A sly, knowing smirk played on Callan's lips as he looked up at the questioner, the tension in the room thick with anticipation. Outside the ornate Morgana salon, a desperate plea of it's a misunderstanding echoed, hinting at unseen drama within. Across a grand, ornate table, a darkly clad man questioned a woman with vibrant pink hair about a supposed misunderstanding, only to receive a frantic, repeated cry about her pajamas. Mortified, the pink-haired woman realized with a jolt that her sleepy haze had led her to unknowingly dress in elaborate finery, and even worse, flirt with Edis. Flustered and mortified, the pink-haired girl hid her face behind her hands, her angel wings drooping as the maid presented her with a new outfit. With a playful lilt, the pink-haired woman insisted her elaborate outfit was a deliberate fashion choice, not a forgotten change of clothes. The dark-haired man across the ornate table seemed unconvinced, but accepted her explanation with a resigned "let's go with that." A steaming cup of coffee was presented with a flourish, its dark surface reflecting the face of the anticipating redhead. The pink-haired lady, dressed in an elaborate gown, delicately sipped her drink, a wistful expression on her face as a thought bubble revealed her craving for a decadent, bare-topped strawberry dessert. Puzzled, she eyed the steaming cup in her hand, a distinct disconnect between expectation and reality clouding her features. As she wondered if her order had been mistaken, a concerned voice inquired about the drink, receiving a hesitant yes, before a shriek of alarm echoed through the room as the gray-haired servant stumbled back, dropping what appeared to be a bottle. The dark-haired gentleman observing the scene with an unreadable expression, while the pink-haired lady, her back to the commotion, calmly sipped her tea, with a resigned sigh. The pink-haired lady in the elegant gown decided to take a sip of the tea, her face contorted in disgust the moment the liquid touched her tongue, a forceful "foo" escaping her lips. The pink-haired woman, elegantly dressed, offered a steaming cup of tea to the dark-haired man seated across from her, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. As she inquired about his apparent discomfort, he dismissed her worry with a sigh, claiming everything was fine. But his strained expression hinted at a hidden truth. With a delicate flick of the wrist and a sigh of how disappointing, the elegantly dressed person dismissed whatever the teacup held, the opulent setting only emphasizing their displeasure. The elegantly dressed man, holding a delicate teacup, accused his wife of deception that had spanned their entire marriage, his tone laced with a mixture of resignation and hurt. With a subtle gesture, the pink-haired woman in the ornate dress requested a moment of pause. From the unseen person before her, a questioning yes rose from below, likely prompted by her serious expression and commanding presence. The pink-haired woman, seated on an ornate throne, noticed something off in the distance. A flicker of curiosity in her eyes, a tempting spread of chocolate, cookies, and strawberries lay upon a delicate cloth, promising a decadent treat. The pink-haired girl cautiously peeked through a partially opened ornate door, a soft gasp escaping her lips as she whispered a confused "huh." With a quiet determination, he secured the apron around his waist, the soft rustle of the fabric hinting at a task about to begin. With focused precision, the dark-haired man expertly chopped chocolate, fresh strawberries gleaming nearby in a separate bowl. A golden glow emanated, seemingly reflecting the warmth of the scene, momentarily obscuring the view. The same man now pouring a dark liquid, perhaps coffee or tea, his expression serious and intent. A decadent strawberry sundae, topped with a chocolate bear and a wafer sticks, earned a glowing 3-star rating. Surrounded by playful hearts and cheerful symbols, the dark-suited man, a picture of elegance and power, gestured towards the elaborate dessert, inviting the pink-haired woman to indulge. A quiet gasp escaped her lips as she learned the Grand Duke of the North himself had prepared the sweet treat. The pink-haired lady, seated on an ornate throne, observed the dessert before her with a thoughtful, almost apprehensive expression. She mused aloud that it seemed quite presentable, a touch of uncertainty lingering in her voice. A voice marveled at the dish, its presentation a perfect match to the menu's enticing photograph. The dark-haired man, elegant in his ornate black jacket and sapphire brooch, offered a smooth, almost challenging, enjoy, contemplating the delicious treat before her. The pink-haired lady wondered aloud if she should indulge. With a determined glint in her eye, she took a bite, bracing herself for the potential disappointment while resolving to maintain a composed expression, regardless of the taste. Overcome with delight, the pink-haired lady lifted her decadent treat high, declaring it incredibly delicious. Astonished, she realized it surpassed even the royal chef's culinary creations back home. The offer of a culinary treat from the capital before a journey north hung in the air, leaving the pink-haired woman momentarily speechless and with a flustered expression. With a subtle touch of his hand to his chin and a glint of determination in his eyes, the dark-haired man in elegant attire declared he would take care of the matter. The pink-haired woman, seated on an ornate chair, stared at her elaborate dessert, a softa, escaping her lips as she realized it was drastically different from her expectations. She mused that he'd likely invent some excuse to avoid the inconvenient meeting. He surprised her by appearing, elegantly dressed, walking beside her in the soft light of a grand city avenue. She further confessed her internal doubts, having even anticipated a delay in the crucial contract signing. A dusty, cobweb-laden letter hinted at a dark secret, prompting a sudden, chilling question of misinterpretation. Single tear traced a path down the rosy-cheeked girl's face. As she recalled someone's perceived laziness, she puzzled over a mysterious change in his behavior. A sense of protectiveness washed over her as she decided against confronting him. With a delicate spoon in hand and a satisfied glint in her eye, the pink-haired lady declared her desire for the custard pudding, her current dessert clearly not enough to satiate her sweet tooth. On a sun-drenched bench amidst a picturesque garden, a woman with vibrant pink hair, adorned in a ruffled blue gown, inquired if a certain boisterous friend, who'd threatened a morning visit, had departed. Her dark-haired companion, smartly dressed in a dark suit, confirmed with a curt, seemingly indifferent, reply. Confusion painted the pink-haired girl's face as she tilted her head, questioning marks practically swirling around her in the air. Bewildered by the implication that she could see something unseen, the dark-haired man, dressed in formal attire and sporting a striking blue jeweled accessory, subtly revealed his unusually keen sense of hearing, able to pick up even the faintest whispers. The pink-haired woman, adorned in an elaborate gown, sat next to a dark-haired man. A look of awe painted on her face. She pondered aloud about a transcendent individual with remarkable abilities. A question of why lingered in the air, unspoken but heavy with intrigue. The peculiarity of the situation struck her, leaving her with a sense of wonder and bewilderment. With a challenging glint in their eyes, someone reached out and grasped the dark-suited man's hand. Their words laced with a mixture of awe and defiance. If you truly possess such remarkable power. The pink-haired woman, adorned in an elaborate gown, fumed, utterly baffled by a certain child's behavior. A smug grin spread across her face as she realized that even this perplexing situation held a valuable lesson. Yet a flicker of bewilderment returned as she pondered the origin of the child's unusual conduct. The setting sun cast a warm glow over a grand building with a clock tower, as someone mused that Gilbert must have been influenced by his biological father, a thought that lingered, heavy with implication. The very idea of Gilbert's biological father sparked a silent question. Filled with intrigue and uncertainty, he resigned himself to the unexpected turn of events. A hint of melancholy in his gaze, he confessed that he had initially made a conscious effort to develop feelings for the other man. A chilling realization dawned as the elegantly dressed, silver-haired young man recalled Gilbert's past cruelty towards his tutors, the current victim kneeling before him, a stark testament to the boy's dark nature. Confusion clouded the pink-haired woman's features as she struggled to reconcile the present situation with her knowledge of the novel's plot, questioning the sudden appearance of a biological father. Her bewilderment deepened as the conversation turned to an unexpected and seemingly unwanted adoption, a twist she hadn't foreseen. The narrative revealed that Edis had brought home two brothers found abandoned in the vast desert. A cloaked figure stood overlooking two small children kneeling in the sand, a scene hinting at a compassionate rescue. Doubt crept in as someone pondered Edis's true intentions, questioning if it was mere kindness or something more concealed. A palpable sense of mystery deepened, leaving the reader wondering what secret Edis might be hiding. Someone pressed the dark-haired man, questioning why he hadn't disowned a certain individual. He admitted there was a reason, hesitant to divulge the specifics. With a heavy heart, he confessed disowning him was simply out of the question. An offer was made, granting the pink-haired woman any wish, even corporal punishment. A slight blush colored her cheeks as she seemed to consider the unusual proposition, finding it hard to believe someone would be so difficult to disown. The observer wondered if there were threats involved, perhaps from a paternal figure. A dark-haired man with piercing blue eyes and an ornate, jeweled brooch emanated an unsettling aura of power, the air around him practically crackling with energy. As someone questioned how such a transcendent being, like Edis, could exist, the same speaker then pondered whether anyone in the novel possessed such immense power. A cloaked figure mused on a young lady's weakness, a subtle smirk playing on his lips. A maid, seemingly unaware of the looming presence above, hurried along a path, her head covered by a bonnet. Another figure, cloaked in similar dark fabric, followed closely behind her, their presence hinting at something clandestine. Amidst a whimsical backdrop of pastel stars, a surprising revelation burst forth. She couldn't whistle. The hooded figure, startled, reacted with a confused what? A small, seemingly insignificant stone figure with a grumpy face was presented. Declared a crucial weakness. A figure in a maid's uniform, their face obscured by a sack, dramatically declared falconry a crucial skill for any aspiring aristocrat. Their fingers pressed together as if holding some secret knowledge. The pink-haired lady, dressed in a military-style uniform, attempted to train a hawk, but her inability to whistle made the task challenging, her soft, breathy calls failing to command the bird which soared indifferently nearby. Intrigued, the cloaked figure mused aloud, a subtle plan forming behind a thoughtful touch to their lips, while their masked companions stood quietly, a faintly unsettling air of innocence about them. Dismissing the maid's previous response as worthless, a looming figure gave her one final chance to answer correctly. A hand reached out, a silent, threatening gesture, as two imposing figures closed in on the terrified maid, brandishing knives. A small gasp escaped the maid's lips as fear overwhelmed her. Someone, desperate and seemingly caught, pleaded for mercy, promising to reveal a secret. The focus shifted to a young woman with rosy hair, sleeping soundly, clutching a teddy bear, amidst a room filled with clocks, as a hushed voice revealed her deep slumber. A thought bubble appeared, revealing the surprising observation that the pink-haired girl was so oblivious she wouldn't even notice being kidnapped. The thought continued, a pregnant pause hanging in the air, as if something even more crucial was about to be revealed. The girl, adorned in a frilly pink dress, sat demurely, a delicate handkerchief pressed to her lips, her eyes closed as if in quiet contemplation. A warning, laced with a touch of dark humor, was issued. The lady had a particular palate and despised sweet potatoes, cucumbers, onions, and regular potatoes. This culinary aversion became strangely crucial, with a darkly suggestive implication. Anyone with sinister intentions should meticulously avoid these ingredients. Overwhelmed, the cloaked figure clutched his head, his blood pressure skyrocketing. As he declared the situation utterly insane, he lamented about a certain noblewoman and her maid, both of whom he deemed equally mad, his exasperation evident. A mischievous, pink-haired maid, likely the one he referred to, appeared with a gleeful, almost manic expression. A sinister thought, should I just kill her? Flashed through the cloaked figure's mind as they held the blade to the gagged and helpless maid. A chillingly confident voice echoed, assured that their actions would go unseen. The cloaked figure, sword gleaming, stood imposingly against the backdrop of a burning building, his back to a small group of onlookers, including a woman in a maid's uniform. Callan, amidst a blaze of crackling energy, was warned to cease his actions. With a steely gaze and a flick of his wrist, the dark-haired man in the ornate suit unleashed a torrent of shimmering, blue magic. Sharp, stinging blow landed across his face, sending a jolt of pain through him and a startled cry escaping his lips. A startled gasp escaped his lips as he registered the unexpected presence. His eyes widening in disbelief, a surge of magical energy enveloped the dark-haired man and the pink-haired lady, his expression serious as he seemed to be protecting her. Someone gasped in concern for the young woman, hinting at a sudden and unexpected event. A hurried maid, breathless and apologetic, rushed in, her shawl askew. The maid, her face etched with concern, held the pink-haired lady close, murmuring soothing words and guiding her towards home. A young woman wailed dramatically, her cry echoing against a vibrant sunset sky. The pink-haired lady, her expression serious, addressed someone named Lord Callan, reminding him of a prior warning she had given. With a chillingly calm demeanor, the elegantly dressed man warned the other, whose face was pale with fear, that the rope he clung to was rotten. His face contorted in a grimace, a strangled gasp escaping his lips as he stumbled back. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the halls, followed by the urgent command for someone to flee. The figure, clad in simple attire, sprinted down the corridor, their footsteps echoing the growing sense of dread. Doubt clouded the air as someone questioned if it was truly wise to leave matters unresolved. A figure, poised by a waiting carriage, reassured them with a calm "it's fine." The dark-haired one, perhaps a loyal confidant, revealed a cryptic piece of knowledge. The identities of both the kidnapper and the mastermind behind the abduction were now within their grasp. With a subtle glint in his eye, the dark-haired man offered a veiled threat disguised as assistance, his words laced with a quiet intensity. With a mischievous glint in her eye and a barely suppressed giggle, the pink-haired noblewoman coyly hinted at a request, causing the maid to react with a flustered, hand-covering mouth gasp. The dark-haired man, dressed in a finely detailed coat, encouraged open communication, assuring the unseen individual he would do anything within his power to assist. A pink-haired woman, elegantly dressed in a gown, considered the news with a sly smile playing on her lips. With a newfound confidence, she smoothly ordered Edith to prepare the honeymoon suite. Under a sky ablaze with the hues of sunset, a declaration was made. A visit to the Grand Duke's residence was imminent that very night, leaving the dark-haired listener stunned and questioning. With a soft yet concerned Sierra, the pink-haired noblewoman in an elaborate blue gown observed another, seemingly lost in thought. Her unease grew, noticing the other woman's unusual silence. Someone decided to treat the day's events as a workplace injury. Overjoyed, the maid, her face beaming, clasped her hands together in gratitude as gold coins seemed to rain down around her. Her heartfelt thanks poured out to the generous young lady. The pink-haired lady, previously thought to be distraught, stood composed and elegant, realizing her worries had been unfounded, while the maid beside her, adorned in a crisp uniform, sighed in relief, amused by the unexpected turn of events. A sudden realization dawned, bringing a spark of excitement. A maid, fiddling nervously with a long pearl necklace, worried aloud that being kidnapped mid-packing left her woefully unprepared for her predicament, resigned to the inevitable. Someone seemed to accept a situation. A maid, clasping her hands together, beamed with adoration at a young lady, her eyes sparkling. Internally, however, the maid fumed, facing a 3-month pay cut for an indiscretion that exposed vulnerability. Under a dramatic, sunset-streaked sky, someone's thoughts echoed, accusing a young lady of being a true villain as a grand, ornate building loomed in the foreground. With a thoughtful sip of her tea, the woman in dark attire confirmed something with a low indeed, her gaze fixed on her companion. The pink-haired woman, elegantly dressed and seated, was subtly questioned about a visit concerning someone who had caused trouble for Sierra, a query that caught her off guard, her surprise evident in a soft gasp. The noblewoman, elegantly dressed and seated upon a plush chaise lounge, sipped her tea with an air of quiet confidence, aware that House Morgana held the strings of every secret whispered in the capital. One person cryptically alluded to their northward journey, assuming the other was aware of the plan. Intrigued, the other inquired about the departure date. The first speaker revealed their daring intention to infiltrate the Grand Duke's residence that very night. As a dark-haired man escorted a veiled woman into a waiting carriage, a pink-haired lady looked on with a mixture of surprise and apprehension, hearing the words, "Right after dinner tonight," hanging heavy in the air. Over tea and treats, a surprising announcement was made. The wedding ceremony would be skipped. One observed with subtle amusement that the other seemed rather rushed. The Grand Duchess, resigned, declared her title was already official regardless of circumstances. Observing her troubled expression, another voice conceded, expressing worry despite respecting her decision. With a bittersweet understanding tinged with sadness, the pink-haired woman accepted the unspoken secret, her downcast gaze hinting at a shared burden. A burdened soul apologized to their parents, lamenting the dwindling time. The impending catastrophe in the north loomed large in their thoughts. Driven by desperation, they resolved to defy the book's tragic ending, knowing there was only one path left to take. Beneath the opulent glow of a crystal chandelier, a hushed apology hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions, directed towards Mother. He realized with a sigh that she was truly gone. Worry etched itself on his face as he wondered aloud if she, so young and seemingly fragile, could handle the harsh realities of the North. The woman beside him, her lavender hair a stark contrast to her somber blue gown, began to speak, a hesitant that's escaping her lips. A maid politely interrupted a noblewoman who stood with a man by her side. With a slight bow, the maid presented a folded piece of paper to the lady, explaining it was entrusted to her by another young woman who had just left. Intrigued, the noblewoman wondered if the delivered item was a letter, under a twilight sky. A man and a woman with pink hair stood together, the news of a thoughtfully left letter easing his apparent worry. A mischievous chuckle echoed as someone, unseen, taunted with the words that maybe remained an enigma to them. A gloved hand held the letter, addressed to mother and father. The letter revealed an impending journey north and a subtle request to exert influence on someone named Colin's business affairs. At his desk, a man reacted to the letter with a sigh, seemingly burdened by the implied task. A cunning plan was hatched, whispering of just enough funds to ruin someone and send them to the mines. With a sinister glint in his eye, the elegantly dressed man, presumably a son, placed his trust in his mother to execute their scheme. A dry, disbelieving chuckle escaped his lips, laced with a hint of dark amusement. A comforting postscript offered an invitation to the north throughout the year, a gentle reassurance against any lingering sadness. A worried thought lingered about the distance and cost of a journey north. The elegantly dressed man, smiling gently, reminded his companion of their hard-earned savings and implied purpose. The woman, holding a letter, a soft smile playing on her lips, readily agreed, acknowledging her naivete. One speaker expressed a lingering concern, while the other, armed gently around the young woman in a flowing gown, placed their faith in the unseen sun and law dot amidst a flurry of blossoms. The dark-haired groom gazed adoringly at his blushing bride, their hands clasped together, a silent testament to the trust placed in him by her family. A stately carriage, bathed in the soft glow of lanterns, waited patiently beneath the twilight trees, its wheels stirring up a gentle mist. Gazing out at the sprawling mountain vista, the pink-haired woman wondered if such breathtaking scenery could even exist in the bustling capital. Her attendant confirming the remoteness of their location with a hint of concern. A sense of foreboding filled the air as someone in a carriage worried about potential trouble ahead. The magnificent castle looming large in the twilight. The pink-haired young lady struggled with a suspiciously hard piece of bread, clearly displeased with its rock-like consistency. Meanwhile, a maid despaired, her face streaked with tears, as she scrubbed something with what appeared to be painfully icy water. The pink-haired girl grimaced, a flicker of worry crossing her features as she hoped a certain unpleasant scenario wouldn't unfold. An unnerving thought followed: an unexpected Grand Duchess would surely face a frosty reception. The pink-haired woman, seemingly exasperated, assured someone that a slight loss of composure would be understandable under certain trying circumstances. Meanwhile, a man in simple attire sat within a horse-drawn carriage, the rhythmic clatter of hooves against the cobblestones echoing in the twilight air. The carriage pulled up to the Grand Colossus ducal estate, its elegant facade hinting at the power and prestige within. Under a star-dusted sky, a grand, almost imposing ducal house stood bathed in moonlight, prompting a quiet murmur of awe. A thoughtful hum followed, the sound suggesting intrigue and curiosity about the secrets held within the stately walls. Startled by a sudden noise, the pink-haired lady froze, her eyes widening in surprise as her attendant cautiously addressed her. A heavy thud echoed as a suitcase was dropped, seemingly from a great height, followed by a startled cry of alarm before a grand carriage. A woman in pink and another in dark attire watched as a figure in uniform offered a formal salute. Ranks of uniformed soldiers echoed the salute with the resounding greetings. The air vibrated with formality as the soldiers declared their respects to the Grand Duchess. The pink-haired woman, adorned with an elaborate pendant, paused, a flicker of annoyance in her vibrant eyes as a gasp escaped the woman beside her. She inwardly questioned the dense expressions of the uniformed men assembled before her, their faces grim and unreadable. With a formal gesture, the dark-haired man in the ornate uniform introduced himself as Vega, the estate's temporary manager, offering his respects to those before him. Vega, the pink-haired woman in elegant white attire, met a cordial greeting from uniformed figures. One, overcome with nerves, stammered and offered to guide her. With a sweeping gesture, the guide indicated the way forward. The green-haired young man in a military-style uniform gasped, his face flush, as if startled by a sudden, loud noise or event. A newly knighted Prussian, radiating youthful enthusiasm, announced their presence and offered their escort services to the surprised pink-haired lady, explaining that Vega was otherwise occupied. The lady, clearly flustered by this unexpected attention, touched her cheek with a soft "oh my." The dark-haired woman leaned in, whispering a conspiratorial question about a possible preemptive gift of fruit to the pink-haired lady, who responded with a surprised and uncertain "not really." Panic filled the air as two men in ornate military uniforms realized they'd yet to formally greet a person of high rank. One accused the other of slyly tripping a third man, sending him sprawling onto the floor with a thud. Another voice, filled with outrage, berated the two for their undignified scuffle in the presence of their superior. With a manic grin and a trickle of blood tracing a path down his cheek, The green-haired man brushed it away dismissively, a glint of anticipation in his eyes as he relished the long-awaited moment. A cunning plan was hatched. A surprise so amazing it would prevent any thoughts of divorce. A question about late-night snacking was met with a chuckle and a confident, "That's fine. I have a second plan." The green-haired schemer's eyes gleamed with sly amusement, a sinister smile playing on their lips as they held a hand to their face, clearly already relishing the intrigue of their backup plan. A tantalizing offer of an irresistible surprise hung in the air, a promise whispered over a lavishly decorated room. The focus shifted to a specific spot, highlighted as an ideal location. Its perfection was further emphasized by the claim of optimal sunlight, moonlight, and even the delicate touch of morning dew, all gracing the third-floor dot with a flourish. The green-haired man presented a grand, ornate bed, his excitement palpable. The pink-haired woman, observing with a thoughtful hand on her chin, agreed that it was indeed impressive. With a playful grin, the green-haired individual eagerly suggested they retire for the night. However, the other, with wide, shocked eyes and a darkened, dramatic backdrop, revealed their inner turmoil, silently declaring their refusal. A dark bird soared through the twilight sky, passing over a majestic castle bathed in the cool hues of evening, its presence seemingly unnoticed. A planned surprise went awry, leaving the green-haired person tucked in bed, their face crumpled with childish disappointment. Steam rising from the ornate bath. A figure emerged, their hand resting on the edge, a soft sigh escaping their lips. The dark-haired man, glasses slightly askew, reclined in a luxurious bath, a soft sigh escaping his lips. Though he'd given explicit instructions, he worried. Picturing her adorable pout if the preparations weren't to her liking, a thought crossed someone's mind, wondering if the rosy-haired woman, dressed in a delicate nightgown, was already fast asleep. She stifled a yawn, confirming their suspicions with a soft, sleepy sigh as she relaxed on an ornate chaise lounge. A bare-chested man, seemingly lost in thought, touched his face with a hint of anticipation, a smirk playing on his lips as he mused about an interesting tomorrow. With a contemplative frown and slightly parted lips, the dark-haired man mused that she should be asleep by now. A dark-haired man, clad in a loose robe, emerged from an ornate doorway, a sense of anticipation hanging in the air. Then, a soft voice echoed, acknowledging a significant passage of time since they last saw Edith. He paused, a flicker of something unreadable in his dark eyes. A soft rustle filled the air as she gracefully knelt, a serene smile playing on her lips. "Edith?" he questioned, his voice a low murmur in the dimly lit room. A dark-haired man, about to exit a dimly lit room, offered a polite apology for what he believed was a mistaken entry, only to be abruptly stopped by a pale hand and a desperate plea confirming that the room was indeed his. With a mischievous glint in her eye, the pink-haired woman mused about the logic of separate bedrooms on a wedding night. A hand reached for a doorknob, a quiet click echoing in the dimly lit room, followed by a murmured intention to change clothes. With a playful glint in her eye, the pink-haired woman agreed, but warned her companion against any escape attempts, suggesting they simply hold hands and sleep. He seemed to consider her words, a pregnant silence hanging in the air. Lying stiffly in the large bed, the pink-haired woman stared ahead, a silent question hanging in the air as the dark-haired man beside her lay facing away. She nervously wondered if even holding hands was too much to ask in their current situation. He remained silent, seemingly lost in his own thoughts. With a newly pronounced marriage, one partner suggested they get a little closer, the words hanging in the dimly lit, opulent room filled with the warm glow of a candelabra. The pink-haired woman, nestled comfortably amongst pillows, offered a playful invitation, hinting that she was open to satisfying any lingering curiosities. Lying in bed, a troubled young man with dark hair searched his memories, desperately whispering a plea for any recollection at all. The pink-haired woman, reclining languidly, arched a brow and purred, inviting her unseen companion to voice their question. A hand twitched, seemingly regaining consciousness. Someone questioned how a victory against Gilbert had been possible. A fierce clash erupted, the pink-haired combatant being swiftly overpowered by a sharp kick from their opponent. The observing voice mused that such a display of skill was beyond the capabilities of an average person. With a blush creeping up her cheeks, the pink-haired woman confessed a shocking secret. She had consumed the blood of a magical beast. A binding contract, sealed with blood, was forged under the watchful eye of a quill, promising something powerful in return. The contract, adorned with intricate symbols, sat beneath a glowing vial, its contents shimmering with otherworldly light. The terms of the agreement, it was emphasized, were just and transparent, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The dark-haired man, seemingly taken aback, mused aloud about his wife's unexpected connection to magical creatures. From below, The pink-haired woman quickly interjected, attempting to downplay the situation as a simple, straightforward transaction. A cloaked figure, radiating an aura of ancient power, revealed to the small girl with pink hair that guarding the beast. Grave had granted him a portion of their strength. Turning away, the girl mused that her recent success had been a stroke of luck, privately doubting she could wield such power again without dire consequences. In a dimly lit room, illuminated by the flickering glow of a candelabra, one person inquired about the nature of a beast another had formed a pact with. The other, with a hint of mystery, revealed the beast was ancient and possessed the remarkable ability to speak as humans do. He sat on the edge of the opulent bed, staring down at the pink-haired woman reclining beside him, the word unbelievable escaping his lips in a hushed, disbelieving murmur. Hesitantly, the pink-haired woman leaned in close, requesting a private word with the dark-haired man. Her touch against his face as she drew him near was intimate and charged. A hushed whisper passed between them, shrouded in secrecy. Her soft touch against his chest sent a ripple of emotion through him. A silent question in her pink-haired gaze. He seemed to struggle with the implications of her words, his mind reeling. In disbelief, stunned, he wondered aloud if he had misheard her entirely, desperately needing clarification.